Hey, so I should probably introduce myself before we dive into this whole mess. I'm Alara Rossi. I'm a chef. Well, I was. Before the corporate sharks and contracts showed up and chewed through everything. My whole life was Rossi's Hearth, my family's bakery. That little place was my entire world. Simple, mine, perfect. My biggest problem used to be the yeast to flour ratio, you know? But then the money got tight, and the building went up for sale. And that's when Julian Vance walked in. At first, he was just a suit, an obstacle, a walking, talking risk assessment. I saw dollar signs, he saw sentimental inefficiency. And honestly, that's where the story really begins. Because the way he saw me, it changed everything. You want to know what it's like when the most controlling, cynical man you've ever met becomes the only person who truly sees you and then throws it all away? Yeah, grab a glass. Let's start with the day he showed up. You know how sometimes you fall for the person you absolutely shouldn't? Yeah, that was Julian Vance. A gorgeous corporate machine who thought my passion was ridiculous, and I just needed him to fail. But then, things got messy. We were supposed to be rivals, but suddenly we were sharing secrets. And then one reckless night, we fell. Completely. We kissed like the world was ending, and I actually let myself believe he trusted me. And here's the twist you won't see coming. The moment I finally surrendered, he didn't just walk away. He took the vulnerability I gave him, my confession, and used it to try to win the competition. He weaponized my own heart. I realized he wasn't running from me. He was running from the possibility of being human. Now the judge's decision is down to the two of us. Him or me. I learned all his cold tricks so I could beat him. But now the price of winning means destroying the man I actually love. So what do you do when the only way to save your future is to break your own heart? Find out now. This is the strategy of love. The kitchen was alive, like it had its own heartbeat. Roasted garlic wrapped around me like a warm scarf, mixing with the sweet tang of tomatoes and the faint copper scent rising from my grandmother's skillets. I was in my element, skillet in one hand, whisk in the other, 3 orders balancing in my head like a shaky stack of cards. The air hummed with the hiss of oil, spoons clattering against metal, the quiet murmur of my staff. Rossi's hearth was too small, too warm, too messy, but it was mine. Every corner smelled like years of love and mistakes. My father's old cutting board leaned against the counter, cracked right down the middle, but sacred to me all the same. Then the door opened, and the room froze. Julian Vance stepped in like a blade of winter. I swear the air shifted before he even drew a breath. His suit was impossibly crisp, tailored to perfection, and probably worth more than my rent. He didn't look at the bread rising under damp towels or the pans singing their copper songs. He looked at the room like it was a spreadsheet. Square footage, efficiency, profit lost. I almost dropped the skillet. "Oh," I said, voice packed with alarm, disbelief, fury. "You again." His lips twitched, amusement or disdain, I couldn't tell. "Alara Rossi," he said, steady and precise. "We need to discuss your operational inefficiencies." I barked out a laugh, sharp and rattling. My hands trembled, not from fear exactly, more from adrenaline punching through my veins. "Operational inefficiencies? You mean the heart and soul of my restaurant? Because if you touch one of my grandmother's pots..." He ignored me. Of course he did. Julian never saw warmth or life. He saw margins, timelines, assets, me as an asset. The contrast between us almost made my skin crawl. Me, covered in rosemary and butter, sweat sticking to my arms, flour dusting my hands like powdered sugar. Him, cold cologne slicing through the garlic, eyes detached and calculating. Heat crawled up my neck. My jaw clenched. He hadn't just insulted me. He'd walked straight into the heart of my life and threatened it. No warning, no courtesy. Just, "Here, let's step into the office," he said, glancing at the cluttered prep counters and mismatched chairs we'd restored with love. "We need to talk about your lease." My stomach lurched. I'd known this was coming, but knowing is different from it standing in your kitchen in an Armani suit. I braced my hands on the counter, knuckles white. "Talk? Oh, we'll talk. But don't think you're walking in here and taking everything I've built. You run spreadsheets, Mr. Vance. I run this kitchen." He raised an eyebrow, barely a movement, but somehow still the most infuriating expression I'd ever seen. My pulse spiked, the air around us suddenly thick, like burnt caramel. My staff froze. Knives hovered. Forks stalled midair. Even my sous chef twitched, and he never twitched. I didn't blame them. Julian dismantled businesses with a word, and now he was standing in mine. He walked past the ovens, hands behind his back, eyes trailing over the copper pots. "I don't see efficiency," he said with a tiny pause that cut sharper than any insult. Because to him, it wasn't personal. It was math. I wanted to scream or cry or throw a whisk at his perfect forehead, but I didn't. I wiped my hands on my apron, straightened, and met him head on. "You want numbers? Fine, fine, let's sit. But know this, what you call inefficiency is the very thing that keeps this place alive. If you think that can be measured, maybe you need a taste of life before you start lecturing on its cost." He paused, eyes narrowing, and for a split second, so small I could have imagined it, I swear he actually saw me. Then he blinked, and the wall slammed back into place. When the bell jingled earlier, I'd felt it, that warning chime before a storm. Julian didn't walk into Rossi's hearth, he invaded it. His steps were slow, deliberate, each click of his shoes sending a chill up my spine. I tasted copper from the ovens, garlic sizzling on the stove, and then the scent of him. Sharp, clean, expensive. Not a hint of cooking, not a hint of softness, just control pressing against my skin. "Miss Rossi," he said, voice calm, controlled, dangerous in that quiet way. "We need to discuss the termination of your lease." The lease. My personal nightmare. He slid a leather folder onto the counter with a crisp, decisive flick. The sound echoed like a sentencing. "I've reviewed your financials," he continued. "Your margins are unsustainable. Your inventory system is archaic. The layout is inefficient. Staff turnover, above average. Projected revenue, insufficient to justify continued operation." My hands trembled around the edge of the counter. His numbers weren't lies. They were just truths sharpened to knives. "So what you're saying," I managed, slipping into the calm tone I used when scolding my line cooks, "is that my restaurant, my heart, is a bad investment?" "Correct," he said. No hesitation. Purely operational. Not a single acknowledgement of the years soaked into these walls, the love baked into every loaf. "It's more than numbers, Julian. People come here for..." "Emotion is irrelevant to profitability," he cut in, smooth as marble. "Your sourcing raises costs. Your growth is stagnant. Optimizing throughput would significantly reduce overhead." Translation: cut the soul. Keep the shell. My throat tightened. Tears threatened, but I swallowed them back. He wasn't bluffing. He believed every word. And that was the most terrifying part. I sank onto the edge of a prep table. The hum of the refrigerators vibrated through me. The warmth of the ovens brushed my shoulders. Basil and butter filled the air. My restaurant smelled alive. But under his gaze, it felt like it was dying. "Your argument?" he asked. "I'm listening." But he knew I didn't have one strong enough to fight a spreadsheet. Debt, legacy, reality, all of it pressed down on me. He watched me with that quiet, satisfied calm that made me want to throw him into the nearest mixer. He didn't see my life. He saw an underperforming asset. And I stood there, tasting garlic and panic on my tongue, knowing this was only the beginning. I tried. God, I tried to make him see. I stepped closer, fingers brushing a warm copper pot. The scent of basil grounded me. "Julian," I said, steadying my voice, "this place is about people. Families leave here smiling, talking about recipes they want to try at home. This is more than revenue." My heart was hammering. Flour still clung to my palms from earlier, like the past trying to hold on to me. He didn't look at the bread or the ovens or the little pieces of life scattered everywhere. He looked at me. Sharp jaw, perfect posture, eyes narrowing like he was evaluating a variable. "You mean sentimentality," he said, "and sentimentality is a poor substitute for strategy." Heat swept up my neck. "You don't get it," I whispered. "It's tradition, community, love. You can't reduce that to numbers." He tilted his head. A tiny movement, but it hit like a spark, a flicker of something human behind the armor. Then it vanished. "Facts," he said, "cannot be argued with. This establishment is financially unviable. Your passion is admirable, but it does not change the outcome." Oh my God. My hands shook. I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles went pale. I wanted to throw tomato sauce at his perfect suit. And he knew it. My eyes must have been blazing because something flickered in his. A spark he hid instantly with a thin smirk. "And passion without discipline," he added quietly, "is a liability. Perhaps one day you'll understand that sentimentality is not strategy." I couldn't answer. My stomach felt like it had been filled with stones. I walked, stiff-legged, breath shaky, back to my office. The clatter of my shoes echoed like panic. I grabbed the phone with trembling hands because if I had any chance left, it was through lawyers and contracts, not fire or heart. And the worst part? That flicker in his eyes, the one he covered up so quickly, it stuck to me. It terrified me, because it felt like he wasn't just here to evict me, he was already in my head. I still remember the phone in my hand, the cord twisting around my fingers like it had a pulse. My lawyer, sweet, frazzled genius, was flipping through piles of documents and muttering to herself. Wait, here it is. It's archaic, probably never invoked, but it's still valid. I blinked. What is it? The mediation retreat clause, from the original lease. It allows for a 10-day dispute resolution, remote location, mandatory collaboration. It's absurd, but legally binding. For a second, my brain just fuzzed out. 10 days? With him? My pulse started hammering so hard I almost dropped the phone. Heat climbed my neck. My palms were slick. My stomach twisted itself into a knot of adrenaline, terror, and, God help me, a tiny spark of thrill. Could I actually do this? Could I trap him in my world? I hung up before she could say anything else, already moving. The air inside Rossi's hearth felt thick, like it had soaked up every ounce of garlic, butter, and ambition and decided to sit on my chest. I grabbed a pad of paper and marched straight toward the office door, where Julian was still standing with that damn folder held like a sacred relic. Julian, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though it wobbled in my own ears. I just got confirmation. We're invoking the mediation retreat clause. 10 days. We leave immediately. The silence that hit the room was unreal, like the kitchen had been vacuum sealed. No pans clattering, no oven humming, no diners murmuring. Nothing. Julian froze. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. I could see his control unravel, thread by thread. His fingers clenched the folder until his knuckles went white, his perfect posture going stiff, like a soldier caught off guard. You, what? His voice was low, sharp, yet underneath it, just for a heartbeat, something flickered. Not admiration, exactly. More like begrudging respect, for the loophole, not for me. Yes, I said, pulse pounding in my ears. It's valid. We're going. You and me. 10 days. Remote, mandatory collaboration. The muscle in his jaw jumped. His whole body locked into place, steel wrapped in annoyance. And still, under all that, an almost invisible hesitation. Something human flickering before he crushed it back down. Finally, he exhaled, slow, deliberate. You've bought yourself 10 days, Miss Rossi. 10 days to try and fail. You've only delayed the inevitable. Fear and triumph tangled in my throat. His words were a warning, sure, but also an acknowledgement. He couldn't shrug this off. He couldn't control it. He left then, swift, precise, irritation radiating off him like heat from a broiler, and I felt a rush that was part victory, part pure terror. 10 days. 10 days trapped with Julian Vance in some remote cabin where every skill, every passion, every emotion was about to be pushed to its limit. And me? I just stepped onto a tightrope barefoot, blindfolded, heart pounding in my chest. Oh God, that follow-up email. I still get shivers thinking about it. I remember staring at my laptop, the screen casting pale rectangles across my face, and feeling my stomach drop straight to the floor. My lawyer had spelled out the logistics like she was planning a military operation. Single approved vehicle, no external team, departure immediately upon confirmation, no delays tolerated. Every sentence felt like a trap snapping shut. I gave this brittle, nervous laugh because it suddenly hit me how precisely my freedom had evaporated. No assistance, no prep crew, no buffer. Just me, Julian, and a 10-day countdown. 10 days breathing the same recycled air, 10 days of accidental brushes, 10 days of him judging, monitoring, controlling every move I made. I tried making a packing list, routes, contingencies, disaster scenarios, everything felt useless. Every plan already had his fingerprints on it. He wasn't even in the room yet, and somehow he was already steering. The air in my office felt heavier than garlic butter on risotto. And then my eyes landed on the phrase, single approved vehicle, oh God. Not a van, not a carpool, a single car. My chest tightened. I could practically smell the leather, feel the cramped seats, imagine my knee brushing his. 10 days with no escape. Not in a cabin, not in a car. I ran my fingers along the edge of the desk, trying to absorb the reality my small victory had just turned into an intimate siege. A slow, grinding captivity. I could already hear it in my head, Julian planning the fastest route, the optimal fuel stops, the ideal snack storage, the perfect air conditioning temperature. Meanwhile, I'd be fighting his control at every turn, scribbling counterplans in the margins. I snapped the laptop shut. Hard. 10 days, one car, one enemy, and me, trying not to lose myself in the process. That's when it hit me. I wasn't prepping for a trip. I was prepping for war. Packing felt exactly like that. Battle prep. I dragged my rolling cart across the kitchen, the wheels scraping against the tiles like a drumline in my skull. Pots clanged as I loaded them, heavy, worn, copper-bottomed, soaked in 1,000 memories. I ran my fingers along the rims and remembered my dad teaching me to whisk egg whites, the lemon zest thick in the air. Nostalgia. Dangerous territory. Julian would smell sentiment a mile away. I stopped in front of the mirror, wild hair pinned back with one sad clip, flowers streaking my cheeks like snow. I tried, honestly tried, to become something else. Cold, calculating, ruthless. For 10 days, I whispered to my reflection, I am the wall he cannot break. I packed my knives last, sharp, gleaming, perfectly balanced. My hands lingered on them longer than they should have. Tools, yes, but also reminders. Every dish I'd poured love into was exactly what Julian was trying to strip from me. So I brought all of it. Every bit of passion, wrapped in a newly sharpened edge. Then there was Ravioli, my battered, lovable SUV. Faded paint, a dent from a careless delivery driver, a muffler that hummed like a dying baritone. She wasn't pretty, but she was mine. And now, somehow, she'd be ours. I cleared the passenger seat, my little sanctuary for him. He'd notice every crumb, every stray scent, every bit of personality I'd ever let linger. So I wiped, stacked, organized, sighed, repeated. I checked my packing list, not clothes or toiletries, but the real essentials. Knives, pans, spices, my recipe journal, and the mental catalog of every insult Julian had ever tossed my way. I wasn't being sentimental anymore. I was being strategic. And it felt wrong, heavy, like guilt sitting on my chest. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and looked at myself one last time. A wall, a weapon, a lie I had to believe to get through 10 days with him. I exhaled and turned the key. Ravioli rumbled awake, her tired engine shaking the air. Rosemary and garlic still clung to the cab. Every mile toward the meeting spot dragged me deeper into the unknown. Julian was waiting. And for the first time, I wasn't just defending my restaurant, I was defending every spark he'd ever tried to smother. 10 days, one car, one enemy. And me, pretending I was made of steel. I gripped the wheel. Let's do this. So there I was, standing in a cracked parking lot, trying not to hyperventilate when he pulled up. Julian Vance, in a car that screamed success before he even stepped out, black, polished, expensive, painfully him. Then he emerged, and the wave that hit me, brutal, that suit impossibly crisp, his hair ridiculously sculpted, and the look he gave me, or more accurately, the look he gave Ravioli, pure disdain. You could bottle it. He didn't say a word at first. Just stared at my SUV like it was a crime scene. Then, in that smooth, slicing voice, he said, "You're sure this is the vehicle?" I wanted to laugh, right in his face. "Yes," I said, keeping my tone neutral even as my heartbeat sprinted. "This is the vehicle. You're riding with me." His nostrils flared, just a hair, but I caught it. His posture went even straighter, as if the air inside Ravioli might contaminate him. He climbed in carefully, like he expected me to launch him out the window. Suddenly, the car felt tiny, 5 feet of metal and fabric, and there he was, his shoulder almost brushing mine, his thigh edging closer than necessary. And that cologne, cold, sharp, expensive, I could taste it in the back of my throat. We hadn't even started the car, and the first battle was already brewing. "Air conditioning," he said, scanning Ravioli like a general assessing a battlefield. "It seems insufficient." "Oh, please." "You mean it's normal," I said, "for the rest of us mortals who aren't wrapped in designer silk and scent." He ignored the jab, but the twitch in his jaw gave him away. Tension coiled tight between us. And, I glanced at the pile of bags and folded blankets in the back. "Maybe we need a little space? I try to keep Ravioli cozy, but we'll need elbow room." His eyes narrowed, and for a split second, something, attraction, wariness, flashed between us. "Fine," he said, clipped. "I will manage." Manage. As if he were about to endure a natural disaster. I turned the key. Ravioli groaned to life. Julian didn't adjust, didn't shift, but I felt it. Every controlled breath, every tiny exhale, he was bracing, and every inch of him next to me was irritatingly potent. You want control, Mr. Vance? I said, teasing just enough to get under his skin. Fine, but you're riding in my car, and for the next 5 hours, I control the music. He didn't answer. But that jaw twitch? Pure victory. The tires squealed as I eased onto the highway. 5 hours, one car, relentless, unfiltered proximity, and I could already feel the storm building. So there we were, zipped into Ravioli, my battered SUV that always smelled faintly like leather conditioner and yesterday's coffee, while Julian sat beside me like a steel beam in a bespoke suit. The way he scanned the interior, as if the car had personally insulted him, was almost satisfying. Almost. He didn't even touch the upholstery, holding himself an inch above it like the fabric might infect him. And honestly, with my perfume and his antiseptic cologne mixing in the cramped space, the air felt one spark away from combustion. I hit play on the first CD I grabbed, 90s pop, loud enough to make the tires vibrate. Backstreet Boys. Yes, I know. Childish. Obnoxious. Perfect. I knew exactly how he'd react. Could you not? He said, clipped and professional, the kind of tone that could slice marble. He looked like someone had shoved a lit candle straight up his starched spine. His sunglasses flashed, and I caught the twitch in his jaw. Not? I grinned, tapping my toes against the pedals. This is my car. My music. My rules. He huffed, one nostril flaring, and reached for the volume. I moved my hand away quickly, like I was ready to wrestle him for it, just to watch him twitch. Then came the battle over the air vent, our lone, slightly broken vent in the center console. He tried to point it at himself. I twisted it back toward me. His hand brushed mine, cold and precise, and he immediately went for another angle, like he could outmaneuver airflow. You're turning it all the way? He asked, incredulous. Yes, I said slowly. Cold air. For health reasons. He flinched, either from the blast of cold air or the fact that I wasn't caving. Either way, I savored the tiny victory. Then the GPS lit up. His finger hovered over the screen like he was disarming a bomb. We're taking the fastest route, he said, deliberate and firm. Oh, efficient, I replied. You know me. I like a little scenery. He scowled, and I hated how much I enjoyed that. The music kept going, bright, bouncy pop clashing beautifully against the tension between us. I could see him wanting control and failing at every turn. With every chorus, with every glare tossed my way, I felt my grin widen just a little. Eventually, the GPS rerouted us onto a winding, bumpy road I never would have chosen. And suddenly, we couldn't rely on petty battles anymore. We had to talk. Not just snap or jab. Actually talk. About the why of everything. About the battle between us. I gripped the wheel, knowing the drive had stopped being about noise and proximity. It was about surviving each other. And honestly, I wasn't sure which of us was going to be harder to survive. The sun was scraping low across the horizon, painting the dashboard gold. I'd turned the music down, barely, so I could hear Julian muttering about childish auditory assault. And that's when he started the argument I hadn't expected, the philosophical one. You know, Miss Rossi, he said, eyes locked on the road, community value and heritage are charming. But they don't pay the bills. They don't secure legacy. They're sentimentality dressed up as strategy. I stared at him through the rearview mirror, irritation curling through me. And without community, without culture and heritage, what do your bills even matter? You're left with spreadsheets and cold rooms. Not a single person cares what you build beyond your balance sheet. He snorted, that low, infuriating sound that mixed contempt and amusement. People care about stability, returns, efficiency, not nostalgia, not the smell of bread from a bakery that's been here 50 years. I deal in certainty. Sentiment is unpredictable. Dangerous. Dangerous. I could practically smell the soap on him. Expensive, sharp, clinical. And damn it, his logic was brilliant. Sharp, precise, ruthless, infuriating. Dangerous, I echoed. You mean human. You mean messy. Life isn't a quarterly projection, Julian. It's moments like this, thus. I tapped the dash lightly, and the people who live inside the places you want to own. He shot me a quick glance. Just one. But it made my pulse spike. All fascination, zero fear. His mind was tracking everything I said, countering before I finished, and I hated that I noticed. Hated it more that I respected the sharpness. You romanticize inconvenience, he said. You confuse chaos with value. Your humanity is useful until it interferes with precision. And you, I countered, confuse calculation with control. Life doesn't listen to you, Julian. Passion breaks your spreadsheets every day. His lips tilted barely. A half smirk, it made my shoulders tighten and my stomach twist. Admiration? No, absolutely not. I shoved the thought away so hard it almost hurt. Don't get flattered, I snapped. I despise your conclusions, but I see your mind working. I see you. He flinched at that, a subtle shift like I'd hit too close. Then the road jerked. A deer. A pothole. Something. It didn't matter. Ravioli lurched. Tires screeched. My body pitched forward. Julian slammed into the console, hard. His elbow crashed into my thigh, sharp and unyielding. Heat shot up my leg, an electric jolt I did not want. My heart hammered against my ribs. He started to say something, sharp, startled, but I barely heard it over the adrenaline roaring in my ears. Instinct made me check him. His shirt was wrinkled, tie askew, breathing quick, alive, irritated, completely off balance. My pulse jumped again. Irritating, dangerous. Watch where you're... I started, but the words tangled in my throat. I jabbed vaguely toward the windshield to cover myself. He straightened slowly, every movement stiff, trying to shove the moment into some mental drawer and lock it away. But my body didn't forget. My thigh still buzzed where he'd hit it. My nerves hadn't settled. I gripped the wheel tighter. "Focus, Alara," I muttered. He criticized my braking. I jabbed back about his wildlife awareness. The words were reflex, a cover for the heat still curling under my skin. Ravioli steadied on the asphalt, but inside the car, everything felt different. He wasn't just an adversary anymore. He was a physical presence, sharp, demanding, unavoidable. And I realized, with a sinking, furious certainty, that the next 10 days weren't going to be about logic or strategy. They were going to be about everything. Every touch, every clash, every inch of shared space. And I hated it. Hated how aware I already was of him. By the time we pulled into the gas station, Ravioli felt like she'd aged 10 years. I practically launched myself out of the car for air. The place was small, grimy, and smelled like burnt coffee and old oil. One of those stations that always feels like it's about to collapse under the weight of its own fluorescent lighting. I stepped into the sunlight, breathing deep. Julian followed, rigid and immaculate, posture pulled so tight he looked carved from marble. Inside, the station was a mess. Napkins everywhere. A half-empty sugar container. Plastic cups rattling when you brushed past the machine. Julian hovered near the door, visibly offended by every molecule of air. His jaw clenched so hard I thought I heard it. I walked to the coffee machine and poured myself a cup of bitter sludge. He lingered near the doorway like the floor might contaminate him. Then he took a paper cup and, God help me, wiped the rim with a handkerchief before taking a sip. A CEO forced to drink gas station coffee. It was poetic, and the tiniest corner of me felt something I didn't want to feel, pity. He was helpless here, out of his world, stripped of his control. His discomfort was sharp, real, almost vulnerable, which I hated and couldn't ignore. I leaned against the counter, sipping my terrible coffee, watching him pretend he wasn't dying slowly inside. "You're really thriving," I said lightly. He ignored me. Not even a sideways glance. We filled the tank, carried our questionable coffees back to the car, and slid into the thick, tense air inside Ravioli. Julian didn't say a word. He just sat there, stiff, precise, quietly undone by a gas station. And I realized this trip wasn't just about strategy or conflict. It was about endurance, for both of us. We're barreling down a 2-lane stretch, sun streaking through the windshield, catching dust motes floating in Ravioli's cabin. I grip the wheel like my life depends on it. After the deer incident, I don't trust this old car at all. Julian sits beside me, impossibly composed, or at least that's the act he wants me to see. He pulls out his phone, naturally. I glance over, half expecting market data or some strategic text. Nothing. Just that little icon blinking, no service. And for a second, just an instant, I saw it. The mask slipped, his eyes widened, helplessness, panic. Like the ground beneath him vanished. And then, because he's Julian, he slammed the phone down, posture snapping back into untouchable perfection. But I saw it. I saw the crack in the armor. He's been controlling everything this trip. Temperature, GPS, air vents, conversation, music, me. And suddenly, that tiny, insignificant signal vanished. Control evaporated. You could almost see the gears spinning in his head. What now? How do I fix this? Fascinating. Terrifying. Delicious. The silence that followed was suffocating. Not quiet, heavy. Normally, Julian fills every pause with commentary, correction, or judgment. Now, nothing. Just that rigid back, tense shoulders, faint, sharp cologne still impossible to ignore. I wanted to ask if he was okay. Of course I did. I wanted to watch him fidget, but I couldn't. Dangerous. I drove, letting the silence wrap around us like a thick wool blanket, forcing me to acknowledge a truth. Julian wasn't invincible. He was fragile, mortal. Every glance afterward was quick, cautious, just enough to see him, jaw tight, hands on knees, posture rigid. But that flicker of terror lingered. I couldn't unsee it. The arguing, teasing, petty power plays, suddenly smaller. Human, mortal. I drove on, tasting tension like iron on my tongue, feeling it curl through the car and settle in my chest. And I realized, this man, my rival, my tormentor, could be undone. Not by skill, money, or etiquette, but by something as simple and humiliating as losing signal. Then Ravioli threw in the towel. Not a hiss, not a gentle surrender. A dramatic puff of smoke spiraled into the sky, thick and acrid, middle of nowhere, miles from civilization, highway stretching into dust and dead grass. Julian sat white as linen, gripping the dashboard like it was a lifeline. "Oh, this is fantastic," he snarled, voice sharp. "This is exactly what happens when you rely on sentimentality instead of efficiency." And I knew. This wasn't irritation. This was controlled dissolving. No contractors, no assistants, no glossy office to throw money at the problem. Here, in the middle of nothing, he was just Julian. Helpless. I popped the hood, heat licking my fingers. Smoke swirled, stinging my eyes. The air smelled like burnt oil and desperation. Julian's cologne cut through it, sharp, impossible, but now faintly human, vulnerable. "Okay," I said, louder than I meant. "We're not dying here. I know what's wrong. We can fix it." And I felt it, that surge of adrenaline that comes from being the one who actually can. I was the mechanic, the problem solver. Julian twitched, completely useless in this moment. He looked like he wanted to assert dominance, but couldn't. I pointed to hoses, cogs, levers. He muttered objections, grumbling about inefficiency, but I saw fear flicker behind his eyes. He knew we had no choice but to follow my lead. That knowledge, watching him swallow pride, was intoxicating. Side by side, under the hood, sleeves brushing, I directed, he complied. Not submissive, not respectful, just human. Raw frustration, dirt and grease on my hands, heart hammering, smoke stinging, and I realized something. Here, he needed me. Minutes stretched, sweat mixed with smoke. Finally, I twisted the last bolt, turned the key. The engine coughed, wheezed, roared back to life. Julian exhaled, a mixture of relief, anger, and maybe admiration I wasn't ready to acknowledge. For a fleeting moment, we were equals, co-conspirators against a dying car, bound by necessity, not ego. Everything changed. And then it happened. Our hands brushed. Not delicate, cinematic, rough, utilitarian scraping against metal. Heat bloomed across my chest. His grip was hard, precise, impossibly strong, like someone who once worked with engines rather than finance. I jerked my hand back. "Careful," I muttered, but my brain was screaming. Logic, horror, attraction all tangled. Ugh. I hated myself. Julian didn't flinch. Eyes narrowed, lips pressed thin, entirely professional. But I saw it, a flicker. He sensed it, acknowledged it. I wanted to curse him and melt into the dirt simultaneously. We finished the adjustment. Ravioli coughed, groaned, and ran. He stepped back, wiping hands, sleeves pristine. We scrambled into the car, avoiding eye contact. Victory. Ravioli alive, deadline safe, overshadowed by the electricity lingering between us. Small, silent, undeniable. The car purred. Relief? Nope. Silence thick as wet wool pressed down on my chest. Every engine hum, every uneven click of tires reminded me we were trapped. Hours from civilization, trapped with each other. I kept replaying the brush of his hand. Stomach clenched. Mechanical adrenaline? Maybe. Accident? Possibly. But my body didn't care. Knees stiff, arms too aware, palms slick. Heat lingered between us, and the hand, on the gear shift, calm, precise, teasing. I caught the flex of his fingers, tension in his wrist, and had to fight not to imagine something else. Impossible. Unwanted. I reminded myself, hatred. Pure, fiery hatred. That's all it could be. But every deliberate line of his face, measured in hail, temptation screamed. I ground my teeth and faced the road. Desert stretched, ochre and brown, cacti like silent witnesses. Silence spoke more than any argument ever could. Both of us thinking the same unspeakable, unwelcome thought. Neither acknowledging it. Not a flicker, not a glance. The road stretched, sky deep into violet. I gripped the wheel tighter. Only discomfort, only tension, only hatred. Almost there. 10 days of isolation, proximity, forced cooperation. This silence, electric, unbearable, is only the opening act. The storm hasn't begun. We finally roll up to the roost. The place couldn't be more opposite anything Julian could tolerate. Pine thick in the air before we even park, earthy, fresh, alive. I feel it. The tension, the car hymn, evaporate just a little. Julian looks like we've asked him to sleep with wolves. Tight, sharp flicker of panic behind perfect mask. Suit absurd against rugged landscape. Every inhale careful. The smell, he wrinkles his nose. I can't help it. A small, unkind smile. Watching him navigate a world beyond contracts or algorithms, it's delicious. The lodge, rustic beams, warm wood, stone fireplace. Windows open to mountains, forests, pine, moss, cold water drifting in. And me, dusty boots, messy hair, suddenly at home. My instincts, improvisation, empathy. Better suited here than Julian's rigid control. Julian's movements stiff, touches wood like it'll burn him. Steps over uneven stones like breaking them will shatter his universe. Empire stripped away. Just a man allergic to fresh air, sunlight, pine needles. And I feel a thrill. Maybe the world isn't his to command. I watch him scan the main hall, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes searching for something to critique. He looks allergic to the air. Beautiful, really. A fortress discovering its walls are glass. Before we linger too long, a man steps forward, Chef Silas, retreat organizer. Tall, broad, smells faintly of rosemary and smoked meat. Voice carries authority. Welcome to the roost, he says. Rules are simple: cook, survive. Cooperation mandatory, comfort optional. Julian stiffens further. Mandatory cooperation? With me? Problem. I inhale the pine air, centered, playful. Mountains mine, subtle but undeniable. The roost isn't just a location. It's a character. It will push us, strip us, expose edges. And Julian? His empire doesn't follow here. As soon as we're inside, he appears, Chef Silas. The name sounds simple, but the man carries weight. Tall, solid, calm, with eyes that scan a room like flames, and knives won't obey anyone less than him. You just know he's used to commanding chaos and making it look effortless. And then there's Julian. Rigid, jaw tight, arms folded, the same reaction he always has to things he can't control. Watching him now in a lodge instead of a boardroom was almost funny. Almost. Silas claps his hands once, low and deliberate, and the room hushes as if the sound carried gravity. Welcome to the roost, he says. No frills, no fluff, just authority filling the space. Before we begin, the rules. And here's the kicker. No phones. No outside contact, ever. He lets it hang. I can practically see the color drain from Julian's control center brain. Without phones, without instant connection, his world shrinks to this lodge, these challenges, and me. Everything here, Silas continues, voice steady, almost conspiratorial, is designed to test collaboration and compromise. This is not a contest of skill alone. It's a test of coexistence. The treaty is about reconciliation, not merely victory. I blink. Did he just equate a cooking retreat with the diplomatic treaty we're racing to finalize? Ugh. Of course he did. Julian's chest stiffens beside me. No words, no flinch, but I hear the gears grinding. How do I control anything if we are forced to cooperate? Silas leans in slightly, voice dropping. Success will not be measured by who wins a challenge or who cooks best. It will be measured by who can confront the truths they refuse to admit. One rule above all, your individual lies must be breached. I freeze, heart thudding. Saying it out loud makes it real. Julian's control, my avoidance, all of it exposed. This retreat isn't about food or mountains or rustic charm. It's a psychological crucible. Silas smiles slowly, enigmatic. This competition is not about cuisine. It's about coexistence. Now, you may proceed to your assigned rooms. The air shifts, dense, electric, sticky with anticipation. Julian follows, silent, taut as a shadow. I can't decide whether to punch him or lean close and whisper, "Good luck, you're gonna need it." I inhale pine, fire, mountain air, steel myself. Kitchen awaits, rooms await, challenges await, and every detail of him will be impossible not to notice. Doors close. For a second, it's just me and the forest scent. I close my eyes, focus. I can survive this contest. I might even control it, but only if I confront what I've been avoiding. That's gonna hurt. The kitchen. Smell hits first. Yeast, wood smoke, something citrusy. Air that makes you want to roll up sleeves and work with your hands. My domain. My battlefield. Except I'm not alone. Julian is behind me, shoes clicking too cleanly, like even the floor insults him. He looks around like rustic charm personally offended him. I bite back a smile. Silas's instructions, adjacent stations. I swear I hear Julian's soul curdle. The setup. Long wooden tables, open shelves with mismatched pottery, copper pans like heirlooms. He flinches at unpolished surfaces. Me? Pulse slows. Home. I unpack knives first, worn smooth, steel catching light. Grandmother's copper pots, heavy with memory, lined like old friends. Next to me, Julian. Sleek, silver, sterile. Digital scales, temperature probes, vacuum sealers. Even his cutting board, maple, polished. Surgical. I can't resist. Planning to cook or perform surgery? He doesn't look up. Preparation is 90% of success, I grin. Yeah, and instincts, the other 10. Try it sometime. He smirks barely. Instinct is unmeasured data. I huff. See? You turn everything into a spreadsheet. I lay out ingredients, herbs, butter, flour, salt. No measurements. I feel his judgment radiating. He labels everything vacuum sealed, precise, not cooking, executing a formula. I hate it. And then, oh, this killed me. He takes a microfiber cloth, wipes his counter. Twice. Silent, deliberate. I feel heat creeping up my neck, territorial. The kitchen is mine. Watching him sterilize it is personal. He glances at my flour chaos. You're gonna run out of space. I smile sweetly. No, I'm gonna run out of patience. Brief twitch of curiosity from him, he keeps working, motions hypnotic. Knife slices, whisk rhythmical. Beautiful. I hate noticing. I'm elbow deep in dough, folding, pressing, feeling life form. He has formulas. I have fingerprints. Our sounds merge, the scrape of his knife, thump of my dough, low hum of water. For one absurd second, a rhythm. Then he reaches over, moves my bowl an inch. Your flour's drifting into my space. I blink. Oh, sorry. Didn't realize I was violating the sanctity of your air molecules. Jaw tightens. Clean surfaces prevent contamination, I whisper. You mean they prevent connection? Freeze. A flash of humanity. Then buried. Click. The shutters slam down. 2 cooks, 2 philosophies, 1 long wooden fault line. Not a spreadsheet, not a contract. Flour-dusted counter. Silas returns, calling out rules. Julian wipes his already spotless counter again, passive-aggressive to the bitter end. I look at my floury hands and feel it. The home advantage. Next morning. You'd think we'd ease in. Polite small talk? Nope. Julian launches the first missile before the coffee even finishes. I'm coaxing dough, warm, yeasty like my grandmother's kitchen, when I hear him flat. You don't measure anything. No greeting. No tone. Judgment incarnate. I don't look up. Nope. Pause. Calculating. So it's all guesswork? Instinct, I say. He tilts his head. Instinct, otherwise known as human error. Dough deflates in solidarity. You sound like a food safety pamphlet. Precision ensures consistency, he says, lining up stainless bowls like a fortress. Without measurement, no standard, no control. Some of us like food to taste like life, not an experiment gone right. He stops, mouth twitching, almost a smile, almost disdain. Pulse skips. Life, he says, testing the word. You mean chaos? Sure, I reply. Chaos, with flavor. Smirk. Flavor is subjective. Balance isn't. Oh my God, I mutter. You actually talk like that in real life, don't you? I'm sorry, he says calmly. Did you think professionalism expired at the kitchen door? No, but I thought joy might live here occasionally. He inspects my dough, then me. That ratio's off. Blink, excuse me? Hydration too high, won't hold structure. You don't even know what I'm making. Ratios are universal. I laugh. Sounds like a cult mantra. Lips twitch, almost a break. Almost. I shouldn't enjoy this, but I do. Electric, dangerous, dual. He criticizes, I mock. He doesn't flinch. Vacuum-sealed pack in my hand. Do you label emotions too? Fear 100 grams? Regret vacuum-sealed. He snatches it back. Deadpan. At least mine stay fresh. I laugh. Out loud. Dangerous. Eyes flick to mine. Your food doesn't taste bad. It tastes audited. Maximized profit per bite. Yours tastes like therapy. Unfiltered, unregulated, unedited. I freeze. Yep, that stung. Flush creeping. I jab knife. At least people remember mine. Do they? Quiet. Or feel it for a moment and move on? I pause. Kitchen hums, charged quiet. Exhale, hair back. You must be really fun at dinner parties. Smirk. I don't go to dinner parties. Shocker. I host them. I laugh. Color-coded seating charts, right? Only when I care about the outcome. You mean when you want to win. Tiny flicker, spark. Recognizing himself in my jab, maybe imagined. Probably not. And I realize he's not stupid. Not just a control freak with cheekbones. Smart. Uncomfortably smart. Sparring with him is dangerous. I like it. I hate that I like it. Silas cuts through air like a blade. Contestants, gather your attention. We freeze. He smiles cryptically. First official challenge begins. Theme, trust. Air leaves the room. Of course, Julian would rather burn this kitchen than trust me. and I feel the same. But we turn to each other anyway. One wild electric second, and I think, this is going to get ugly. Trust. That's what he said. Chef Silas, hands clasped behind his back, that faint, almost smug smile, like he knew exactly the bomb he just dropped in the middle of the room. Your challenge, he said, pacing slowly between the counters, is to create a dish that represents trust. The air stopped. You could have heard a tomato skin peel itself. I looked at Julian. He looked at me, and instantly I knew. He would rather torch the lodge brick by brick than trust a single thing I touched. Honestly, same. Trust, of all things. Not flavor, not technique, not flair, no. The universe went straight for the jugular. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might puke the espresso I'd chugged, because it wasn't just him. That word, trust, yanked me right back to the one thing I never talk about, my dad. God, I could hear him. That soft, guilty laugh. You have to trust me, kiddo. Then the restaurant was gone. The bank took it, he vanished, and my mother? Yeah, let's not go there. Silas's voice echoed off the walls. This task will test not just your technical skill, but your ability to rely on each other. You must fuse your styles. Share the process. Share control. Share. Control. 2 words that might as well have been synonyms for torture. Julian cleared his throat. Define fuse, please. Of course. Always the lawyer in a chef's coat. Silas raised one eyebrow. You'll be judged on balance. The dish must represent both of you. And, he paused, letting it hang, neither of you may complete a component alone. Groans rose around the room. Mine was quieter, internal, like something cracking behind my ribs. I could already see it. Julian hovering over my shoulder, adjusting my timing, reweighing my flour, correcting my seasoning. And me? I'd probably stab him with a spatula before the first course hit the counter. Trust, Silas repeated. That word had teeth. My palms went damp. Wiped on my apron. Didn't help. Heart pounding. This wasn't a cooking challenge, it was an autopsy. And I was the patient. Julian, maddeningly calm, analytical squint already scanning logistics, ratios, efficiency. Meanwhile, I was over here trying to remember how to breathe. He turned toward me, deliberate. We should start by defining parameters. Parameters. Of course, not boundaries, not ideas, not what do you feel drawn to? No, it had to sound like a war strategy meeting. I forced a smile. Sure, parameters. Because that's exactly what trust needs, a spreadsheet. He didn't flinch. It needs structure, otherwise it's chaos. I could feel my pulse spike. You mean life, again? He ignored that. What flavors do you associate with it? With what? Trust. I laughed, a bark I couldn't stop. I don't know, Julian. Whatever doesn't taste like betrayal, I guess. He blinked. For the first time all day, a flicker behind his eyes. Recognition? Guilt? Something. I looked away first. Because I couldn't do this. Not here. Not with him. Trust was a raw nerve I'd learned to bury under sarcasm, control, and good pastry. And now, I was supposed to plate it. I pressed my palms into the counter, grounding myself. Stainless steel, cold, smooth, faint smell of time, not the word echoing in my skull, not my dad's voice, just the metal. Chef Silas clapped once. 3 hours. Julian nodded. I didn't move, legs glued to the floor. 3 hours to do something I hadn't done in years. Let someone in. He finally spoke. Alara? I looked up. What? Hesitation. Do you want to start with a base? Something simple? Tone careful, measured, like he knew he was stepping into a minefield. I should have snapped, should have bitten, but I nodded. Sure, something simple. Scared, not of losing, not of failing, but of what this challenge might dig up if I wasn't careful. I reached for olive oil. My hand brushed his. Just a second. Shock. Pulse jumped. Breath caught. All I could think, this is not going to end well. 10 minutes later, dictatorship. Supreme leader. Julian, of course. Calm, infuriating tone, reasonable until you realize he's annexed your entire country. We should allocate resources efficiently, he said, moving my ingredients like pawns on a chessboard. We'll need the truffles, the veal stock, and I blinked, half the pantry's luxury items. Quality ingredients yield quality trust. I laughed. Buy loyalty by the ounce? He glanced up, cool, analytical, like I was a problem he could spreadsheet his way out of. If we want to win, we can't rely on intuition. You mean on me? No answer. Answer enough. Heat spreads from chest to neck, pulse behind eyes. That tone, I know it. Loan officers, inspectors, my dad before everything fell apart. This is just business. No, it never is. Okay, I said tightly. Your genius plan? Controlled flavor file, no guesswork. I handle protein. You plate. Blink. I plate now? Division of labor. I lean in, voice low. It's about control. You're running this kitchen like a hostile takeover. He doesn't flinch. Someone has to maintain order. Oh my God, I mutter. Quarterly review much? This isn't about power. Really? Because you just cut me out of my own recipe. Finally, he meets my eyes. Flicker, annoyance, something else. Your method, undefined variables, chaos, will fail. Maybe trust is chaos, I snap. Knife slips, shallow nick, perfect metaphor. He moves instantly, touch firm, controlled. My reflex jerks away. You don't get to fix it. Silence, faint hiss of butter burning. If you can't cooperate, I'll handle the dish myself. Oil on flame moment. You want control? My trust? You're trying to run me the way your spreadsheets ran my life. I won't let you. Room dead. Even others paused. Julian, eyes narrowing, jaw tight. No words. Tremor in composure. Then fine. Do it your way. Gladly, I bite out. We split the station like a bad divorce. His side immaculate, mine a storm. Knife clangs, salt sprinkles, defiance. Dish, poor thing, didn't stand a chance. He built sleek, soulless, perfectly plated. I built messy, impulsive, bleeding heart on a plate. Together? Culinary identity crisis. Chef Silas walked by. Air thick. Interesting interpretation. I smiled tightly. Creative differences, he hummed, left. Julian cleaned his side with surgical precision. I stood, chest heaving, hands trembling, pretending I wasn't about to cry. Because he'd won. Not the challenge, us both. Control, under my skin, rearranged my head, hated him. And hated that part of me wanted to prove him wrong. The dish, cringeworthy. Half crime scene, half architecture exhibit. Julian, straight lines, cold geometry, cube of veal on truffle foam, sauce measured with a ruler. Mine, chaos. Big, messy strokes of roasted pepper puree, herbs scattered, flatbread leaning off the edge like it wanted out. Side by side, two people who couldn't agree on what planet they were on. Chef Silas just stared. Not tasting, not smelling, just staring. Silence dragged. Lights heated my neck, sweat prickled under collar, dry throat. This, he said slowly, is a perfect representation of mutual contempt. Oof. Jaw flexed beside me. He didn't look up. He rotated the plate. Half wants system, half wants feeling, neither compromised, neither listened. Fork pokes Julian's cube, lifeless. Dragged through my side, sauce spreads like a wound. It's astonishing. You manage to make a dish about trust and prove you don't trust each other at all. Eyes everywhere. Other contestants, cameras, sound guy. I wanted to disappear, hands trembling, chest tight, metallic taste in my mouth. Panic. Silas clicked the fork down. Potential. But potential means nothing without humility. Fix it or you're done. Judgment passed. I didn't wait. Stormed out. Shoes clacking on tiles, burned behind eyes, refused to cry on camera. Worst part? He was right. Julian. Not Silas. I'd fought him, tried to assert control, and only sabotaged myself. Pride tanked us both. He came out a minute later, quiet, shoes first. Alara, soft, don't. Step closer, we need to. Don't, I snapped. We failed. Happy? Not happy. Well, congratulations, I said. We agree on something. Low, restrained sigh. We'll have to fix it. Together. Together. Skin crawls. I walked away. If I'd stayed 1 second longer, I'd have punched him or cried. Couldn't decide which. And it hit me. Silas wasn't judging the food. He was judging us. And we failed the one thing we were supposed to be good at. I didn't sleep that night. Of course I didn't. How do you sleep after being publicly dissected like a frog in a high school lab? Every word Chef Silas said kept replaying in my skull, looping like a cursed jingle, mutual contempt. It echoed in my ribs. My humiliation tasted metallic, like burnt coffee that's been sitting on the warmer since 5 a.m. The lodge was dead quiet by the time I dragged myself to the common room. The kind of silence that feels weighted. Like even the furniture is trying not to make eye contact. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and burnt toast. Someone's failed midnight snack haunting the room. I just wanted a corner where no one would pity me. Or worse, try to be kind. But of course, he was there. Julian. Sitting in one of those ugly leather chairs, still crisp in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up just enough to look intentional. Even his exhaustion had posture. He didn't look up, just said quietly, I thought you'd come here. I stopped in the doorway. Wow, psychic powers. Great. He exhaled through his nose. Not a laugh, not even the ghost of one. No, just predictable. That one stung more than it should have. I dropped onto the couch across from him, arms clamped tight over my chest. If you're here to say I told you so, don't. I'll throw something. He looked up then, eyes shadowed like the light itself offended him. I'm not here to gloat. Really? Could have fooled me. I said I'm not. His voice was flat, but there was something under it. Strain, maybe. Or guilt. I didn't trust either. We sat in silence. The clock ticked obnoxiously loud like it was mocking us. I picked at a loose thread on the cushion because my hands needed a job. And then, out of nowhere, he said, my approach was wrong. I blinked. Come again? He stared straight ahead. The dish. The structure. I over-controlled it. I assumed precision would compensate for inconsistency. So that's your roundabout way of saying you messed up. His jaw twitched. Yes. I laughed, quiet, sharp. Didn't think I'd live to see the day. He shot me a look, but it wasn't sharp. Just tired. Worn at the edges. You were right, he said. The dish had no heart. I killed it trying to make it perfect. My chest squeezed. I didn't know what to do with that. His honesty or the fact that he sounded almost human. It's funny, I said. I did the opposite, and I tried to give mine too much heart and choked it with chaos. His eyes finally met mine, steady, level. Then we're both murderers. I cracked a smile. A culinary crime of passion. A flicker. A smirk so faint you'd miss it if you blinked. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't sharp. Just aftermath. Two people sitting in the rubble of their own egos. Then he leaned back and said, we have to work together next round. I snorted. Pretty sure that's not optional. It is, he said. We can keep fighting and guarantee failure, or we cooperate, transactionally. Transactionally, I repeated, meaning we work together but don't actually trust each other. He gave one short nod. Precisely. I looked at him, this man who'd steamrolled my pride, who still looked annoyingly composed, and thought, God help me, he's trying. Not emotionally, but logically, which for Julian might actually be the same thing. Fine, I said. Transactional truce, but I'm not saluting you. He gave a small nod. Wouldn't dream of it. That was it. No apology, no handshake. Just two bruised egos sharing the dim glow of a dying fireplace and pretending cooperation wasn't an act of desperation. But walking out, one thought hit me harder than any critique. He didn't look like the villain anymore. He looked tired and painfully human, and somehow that was worse. So that night, after the world's least satisfying almost apology, we made a deal. Not the fun, morally questionable kind. No midnight mischief, no glint in the eye. Just two people staring at the ashes of their pride and deciding survival was more important than bitterness. The next morning, the kitchen smelled like disinfectant and burnt sugar, like someone tried to scrub away the memory of failure. Julian was already there, naturally, still ironed, still early, still irritatingly composed. Without looking up, he said, we need to formalize our process. I wanted to laugh, formalize, as if we weren't still bleeding from yesterday's carnage. Fine, I said. Hit me. What's the contract, Mr. Efficiency? He looked up with that maddeningly calm expression and started listing bullet points like he was planning an invasion. Flavor and plating, me. Structure and cost, him. Agreed ingredients, shared schedule. And of course, we'll refrain from personal discussions. That one sliced clean. So I'm the heart and you're the brain? I asked. I wouldn't frame it like that. Shocking. The silence that followed was the sterile antiseptic kind. Not hostile, just hollow. We'll draft the plan by noon, he said, tapping notes into his tablet. You do realize food isn't an algorithm, I muttered. It has to feel something. Feeling doesn't ensure consistency. Consistency doesn't ensure greatness. He finally looked up, eyes locked on mine. It ensures survival. And damn it, he wasn't wrong. Rossi's hearth didn't crumble because we lacked passion. It crumbled because passion doesn't pay the electric bill. Fine, I said. We do it your way. No fights, no personal talk. Agreed. I held his stare and lied through my teeth. Purely business. But the second I said it, my chest tightened. Because the truth, the tension between us hadn't died. It was humming beneath the surface like static waiting for a spark. Every time he brushed past me at the counter. Every time he leaned too close over a recipe. Every time he said acceptable instead of good. We were pretending, playing roles. Two chefs in spotless coats, reciting lines about professionalism while our pulses wrote an entirely different script. And I already knew the lie wouldn't last. You can't cook beside someone every day, heat, flour, breath mingling, and keep it clean, neat, emotionless. Not for long. The lie lasted exactly 12 hours. The next morning, the new challenge was posted before the ovens finished waking up. Replicate a complex dish with almost no resources, which was basically Chef Silas's way of saying, let's see if they can fight without knives. Except we didn't fight. Julian was already elbow deep in inventory, tie loose, sleeves rolled. We're down to one protein, he said. Cod. Fine, I answered. Poach it. Citrus. You handle timing. He nodded, already scribbling ratios like a beautiful, infuriating calculator. And then we just worked. He calibrated, I seasoned, I adjusted, he plated. We spoke maybe 10 words total. And it worked. Smooth, efficient, almost graceful. The kitchen smelled like lemon zest, thyme, and butter, flirting with the edge of burnt. I wanted to taste the air, but there was no room for pleasure with a timer ticking and Julian hyper-focusing like the fate of civilization depended on the cod. At one point, our hands brushed, reaching for the same pan. The cod trembled in the broth. I probably did too. He stepped back without comment. No smirk, no barb, just silence. And then, miracle of miracles, we finished, perfectly. Silas' assistant tasted it and smiled. Balanced, clean, technically sound. Technically sound. Kitchen code for impressive but soulless. Julian let out the softest breath barely there, but I caught it, relief. Maybe even a flicker of pride. His jaw loosened for half a second, and suddenly he looked real, a man who cared about not failing. And I felt it too, that traitorous satisfaction. Because damn it had worked. His structure and my intuition, a perfect hybrid. But perfection is quiet in the wrong ways. The rest of the kitchen was buzzing, laughing, teasing, complaining. Our station felt like the eye of a storm, calm, too calm. Julian straightened his jacket and murmured, acceptable outcome. I nearly laughed. That was his version of good job. I let it slide. And that's when Silas appeared, studying the plate and then us. Impressive, he said. But tell me, did either of you enjoy making it? Julian stayed stone still. I probably spelled out the entire truth with my face. Silas didn't wait, just smirked and walked off. Perfection without passion is just replication. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Julian frowned, like he was trying to turn the sentence into numbers. I turned to the sink instead and ran cold water over my wrists. Replication. That's exactly what it was. Not creation. Not connection. Just two people mimicking teamwork without the messy human parts. And the worst part? It worked. Chef Silas didn't buy it. Our perfect, soulless little dish. He waited until everyone else had gone to bed, then summoned us back into the kitchen like a disappointed parent calling in two kids who'd broken the family heirloom. The place was dim and hollow, humming with the low drone of the walk-in fridge and the stale smell of burnt oil. He crossed his arms, leaned on the counter like he was bracing for bad news, and said, excellent chemistry, 0 heart. And that was it. No lecture, no theatrics. Just that single line before he nodded toward the mountain of greasy pots stacked by the sink. Pots from the entire class, not ours. Wash, by hand, all of them, he added. Maybe you'll find some passion in the suds. Then he walked out whistling, the absolute menace. I swear, I considered throwing a ladle at the back of his head. The kitchen was already hot, but the moment the water hit the metal sink, steam billowed up like a fog machine on a discount horror set. The air smelled like detergent, old onions, and regret. My hair glued itself to my neck instantly. Julian stared at the Everest of pots, hands on his hips, and said, perfectly calm, this is inefficient. I actually barked a laugh. Oh my God, are you about to draft a washing strategy? He looked over, absolutely serious. If we divide by size and material, it'll reduce. Julian, I pointed at the sponge, grab one. So we started. For the first 30 minutes, there was nothing but metal scraping, water hissing, and my dignity dissolving like a bouillon cube. Silas's words clanged around in my head, 0 heart. And the worst part? He was right. The dish was flawless, soullessly flawless. Every movement of mine had been for precision, not passion. I was elbow deep in greasy water, furiously scrubbing, while Julian rinsed beside me, sleeves rolled to his forearms. His hands looked wrongdoing manual labor. Too clean, too deliberate, like he was performing the action, not participating in it. The faucet squeaked every few minutes, the steam rose again, and the air thickened until breathing felt like sipping soup. This is ridiculous, I muttered. It's punishment, he said without looking up. It's supposed to be. Yeah, but for what? Doing well? For missing the point, he replied. That made me pause. I glanced over. His face was tight, tired, A stray piece of damp hair clung to his forehead. "You really believe that?" I asked. He shrugged, rinsing the pot like it had offended him personally. "We executed flawlessly, but it didn't taste alive," I snorted. "Wow, you sound like Silas." I'm not complimenting him. Silence again. But it wasn't sharp anymore, just heavy. The rhythm started to feel almost meditative. Scrub, rinse, clatter, repeat. Every so often, our hands brushed in the rinse basin, and neither of us jumped like we did earlier. Some strange, fragile equilibrium settled between us. He wasn't the cold suit anymore. I wasn't the chaos tornado he resented. We were just two exhausted humans, sweating and scrubbing in a cloud of lemon detergent. Then he let out this low, weary sigh, not annoyed, not performative, just human. "All our planning," I murmured, "our spreadsheets, our perfect execution, and here we are, scrubbing grease." His hand paused. He looked down at the pot, then softly, "Maybe this is the real work." I didn't have an answer, because I wasn't sure whether he meant the dishes or us. And standing in that steamy, miserable kitchen, with my hands raw and my clothes sticking to me, I hated how much I almost agreed. We were still at that sink. My fingers were pruny, the water was now lukewarm, and the smell of detergent had taken up permanent residence in my nostrils. Julian rinsed on autopilot, moving with the sort of smooth efficiency that made me want to throw a saucepan at his head just to see if he'd break pattern. "Silas has officially lost it," I muttered. "Hand-washing pots. What's next, slaughtering our own cows?" Julian didn't answer. Of course he didn't. He'd been performing silent, perfect rinse stack choreography all night. But then, out of nowhere, I heard it. Not quite a laugh, more like a sound that got lost on the way to being one. A puff of air, a hint of warmth. When I looked up, I saw it. The smile. Barely there, but real. Not his tight corporate smile, not his smug I'm right and you know it smirk. This one was crooked, exhausted, unguarded. Like for 1 second, the absurdity of the situation cracked him open. The overhead bulb caught on the damp strands of hair at his temple, and suddenly he looked painfully, earth-shatteringly human. And God, it disarmed me. I froze mid-scrub, soap sliding off my sponge as my heart did that stupid stutter thing it does when danger starts looking a little too attractive. Because it wasn't a handsome smile. It was worse. It was vulnerable. The kind of vulnerability you don't get twice from a man like Julian Vance. I realized I was staring. He realized I was staring. The smile vanished instantly, like he'd embarrassed himself. He looked away and cleared his throat. But the damage was done. Something in my chest tightened, traitorous and hopeful and deeply inconvenient. We finished the last pan in silence, but not the tense, brittle silence we started with. This one felt tentative, new, like the air wasn't sure what to do with what it had witnessed. When he finally shut off the faucet, he flicked the water from his fingers and said quietly, "We should get some rest." I nodded because I couldn't trust my mouth with words. We walked out side by side into the night air, cold, sharp, smelling of pine sap and wet earth. For the first time, we didn't drift apart like magnets repelling. And as we climbed the stairs toward our rooms, one ridiculous, dangerous thought whispered through me. I want to see that smile again. So, the lodge desk. The clerk, frazzled bun, weary eyes, handed me a clipboard like she was passing me a bomb with a ticking timer. "We've had an unexpected overbooking," she announced, sounding way too cheerful about it. "Only 2 private rooms left in the Pine Needle cabin." I blinked. Julian's jaw tightened, subtly, but enough to scream we are walking into a trap. She continued, oblivious to the apocalypse she was unleashing. "Shared living area. Bedrooms separated by a partition wall. Thin walls. Practically paper. Paper walls." My stomach dropped. My pulse jumped into my throat. I didn't want to look at Julian. I really, really didn't. But of course I did. He stood there radiating a calm that felt more like a loaded weapon. 3 feet. That's all that would separate us. We walked out of the lodge in silence, into the cold night heavy with pine and frost. The Pine Needle cabin waited like a horror movie set, small, isolated, echoing with imaginary creaks. Inside, the air smelled of polish and old wood. The rooms were tiny, claustrophobic, just enough space to stand, turn, and lose your mind. I could already imagine it. His footsteps, his breathing, his late-night pacing, his everything traveling right through that paper-thin wall. Every unguarded habit, every vulnerable sound, every tiny human crack in his armor, and mine. My chest tightened. Panic crept in, quiet but sharp. This wasn't professional proximity anymore. This was intimate, forced intimacy, the kind that strips away distance and leaves you with nothing but truth. I stepped inside first, forcing one foot in front of the other. Julian followed, silent. And I knew, absolutely knew, there was no escaping what this would do. The trap wasn't just set, it had closed. The cabin felt smaller as soon as the door shut behind us. Smaller than any closet I'd ever been shoved into, and with significantly fewer escape options. Julian entered first, bringing with him this quiet cloud of cologne and authority. The air shifted around him like the space itself braced for impact. "Bathroom schedule?" he asked, already scanning the miniature sink like it was a security breach. I blinked. "You mean, actually schedule it?" "Yes." Dead serious. 15-minute increments. No exceptions. 15 minutes. For everything. I almost laughed. Or screamed. Hard to tell at that point. We moved on. Closet division. He measured the sagging rod like he was assessing structural integrity. You take the left, I take the right. Anything above your shoulder height is off limits. Off limits. I wanted to throw a sock into the DMZ just to watch him come undone. Then came the rules. Silent hours, work hours, light usage, snack protocols. He drafted them in a notebook heavier than my suitcase. Quiet hours are from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., he announced. No typing, no page turning, no conversation. It was the Bill of Rights for a 10-day marriage built entirely on mutual contempt. And yet somehow, the rules worked. Instantly, the air felt smaller. Every movement accounted for. Every breath noticeable. Our transactional truce didn't stand a chance. Proximity aided alive on sight. I retreated to my tiny bedroom like a fugitive. The bed was a narrow rectangle threatening to devour me whole. Outside my window, absolute darkness and pine needles. Inside the shared space, the soft scratch of his pen, the turn of a page that wasn't as quiet as he thought, and me flinching like I'd been caught sneaking out past curfew. I unpacked carefully, methodically, trying to exist without taking up space. By the time I put my coat on the designated left section of the closet, one truth had already settled like a weight in my stomach. We weren't just sharing a cabin. We were trapped inside each other's gravity. And I was already considering sneaking a sock into the off-limits zone, just to remind him the universe still allows a little chaos. The door was shut. Logically, I should have been able to sleep. But no, of course not. The wall between our rooms, if you could even call it a wall, was practically made of paper mache. I could hear everything. Not loud, not intrusive, just detailed. Too detailed. Julian moved like a ghost who paid property taxes. Quiet, purposeful, annoyingly precise. First came the soft click of his laptop closing, then the low hum of his electric kettle, because of course he had a kettle routine. A chair scraped, a drawer opened, then closed. Nothing dramatic, yet each tiny sound mapped the shape of him in my mind with embarrassing clarity. I lay there stiff as a board, trying to tune him out. Impossible. Every little noise told me something. The way he paced, the way his hand hovered over the notebook before he wrote, the way he sipped his tea in exact intervals. I didn't have to see him to know exactly what he was doing. Even his breathing came through the wall. Calm, controlled, and when he leaned closer to the desk, there was this tiny hitch in his breath, just enough to remind me he was human, even if he was determined to pretend otherwise. Meanwhile, I was a walking disaster. I shifted under my blanket, and it sounded like an avalanche. I inhaled, and I swore it echoed. I felt ridiculous, hyper-aware of every sound I made. Worse, I kept imagining I could feel him react. I knew he wouldn't actually flinch, but my brain insisted that he felt every rustle. And I hated that listening to him made me curious. There was something almost too real about him in those quiet minutes. No armor, no performance, just the raw midnight version of Julian you weren't supposed to witness. By the time his kettle clicked off and his notebook landed shut, I was exhausted and wired at the same time. Morning arrived way too soon. I slipped out of bed like a burglar, trying to move silently on my own 7-minute bathroom slot before his official takeover of the morning routine. I cracked open the tiny cabin window for fresh air. Cold pine rushed in, and underneath it, faint but unmistakable, was the trace of his cologne drifting past the doorway. I froze. I wasn't supposed to notice things like that, but the night had made it impossible not to. The wall had done its job. I was awake in ways I didn't want to be. Aware. way too aware, and irritated that I couldn't just shut it off. I kept reminding myself, he's your enemy. You're supposed to hate him. But the night whispered something different, and I wasn't sure I trusted myself to ignore it. I thought the wall had been the worst of it. Cute, adorable. I was wrong. I walked over to the little table where he'd been working late, just trying to clear space for my stuff, when it hit me. His scent. That wildly expensive, precision-engineered cologne he apparently bathed in. Sharp cedar, bitter citrus, dark musk, all layered like a corporate takeover conducted by a perfumer. It clung to the cabin like a second tenant. I yanked the window open again, desperate for oxygen that didn't smell like hostile takeover by cedarwood. The breeze rushed in, stirred the air, and did absolutely nothing. His scent settled right back in, weaving itself through the beams, the curtains, my clothes. Everywhere. My body, of course, decided to be deeply unhelpful. My pulse kicked up, my stomach fluttered. I wanted to blame hunger or stress or a mild allergic reaction. But no, my brain kept replaying the image of him from the night before. Hair damp from steam, sleeves rolled, jaw tense with concentration. And suddenly the scent wasn't just a scent. It was a memory. I hated it. Hated how much it got under my skin. Hated that my instincts leaned in when they should have recoiled. I shook my head, grabbed a cloth, and scrubbed at the table like I was trying to manually erase him. No use. The air still whispered Julian in every corner. I had to get out before I lost my mind. The day's challenge was calling, and if I stayed in that cabin any longer, I was going to commit a crime. The forest was dense. Thick moss, tangles of branches, shadowy little pockets where you could get lost if you blinked too slow. My senses lit up immediately. This was the kind of place where instinct mattered. Feel the ground, smell the herbs, trust the wild. And then Julian pulled out a map. Not a normal map, a satellite topographical map with overlays, color-coded, organized. I swear it had margins. Heavily wooded northeast sector, he said, tracing lines like a professor running a lecture. 76% probability of berry yield, moderate underbrush. This path minimizes backtracking by 14%. I stared at him. We're foraging, not invading Normandy. He didn't care. He was in his element. And the worst part? His system worked. He navigated the forest like he'd pre-negotiated a contract with the trees. He found berries, herbs, mushrooms, everything with surgical accuracy. I hated how impressive it was. I hated how right he kept being. By the time we emerged with baskets full of forest gold, I had to admit, silently if the holding his logic had saved us hours. My pride was bruised, my instinct humbled, my respect annoyingly activated. Back in the kitchen, he didn't waste time. Your method of handling herbs introduces inconsistencies, he said, calm as always. Moisture variability. Extraction efficiency compromised. Adjust by 12%. 12%, I snapped. You can't quantify a pinch. He actually leaned closer. Yes, you can. And damn it, he was right. My instincts weren't wrong. They were just measurable. When I applied his framework, my technique sharpened. My intuition gained structure instead of losing soul. We moved around the kitchen in this tense electric swing, logic meeting instinct, precision meeting passion. It was maddening. It was infuriating. It was kind of incredible. When we finally plated the dish, both of us flushed and buzzing. It was perfect, balanced, elegant, and built by both of us, whether we admitted it or not. The judges tasted our work, murmuring in that cryptic way judges always do. Chef Silas looked at us over his glasses. Technically flawless, he said, 0 heart. It hit harder than I expected. He wasn't wrong. The dish was perfect in a way that felt clinical, crisp, polished, and empty. Julian showed no reaction at all, not a blink. We'd won the battle of execution, sure, but the soul of the dish? It hadn't survived the process. I felt the hollowness settle in my chest like a cold stone. Even the applause felt distant. A moment later, an invitation to a communal gathering pulled us out of the bubble of our disappointment. Julian was already recalculating the night's logistics before I had even finished reading the invitation. I followed him into the dining hall, not sure what I was more tired of, winning like this or losing something I wasn't ready to name. The dining hall was chaos in wood-paneled form, laughter, clatter, warm light bouncing off long tables. And of course, Silas seated us side by side like that would magically keep us from combusting. Julian slipped into social mode instantly, polite, smooth, charming in a way that felt rehearsed. His laugh was perfectly measured, his answers polished, his posture immaculate. But I'd heard the midnight version of him behind the thin wall. I knew the truth under the polished veneer, the obsessive precision, the quiet tension, the controlled breathing, the scent that clung to everything he touched. The others didn't. They ate up his performance like it was dessert. His shoulder brushed mine once, barely a graze, completely accidental. But it sent a tiny spark through the frozen, practiced layer he kept between us. I hated that I noticed. Conversation swirled around us. He corrected a competitor gently, straightened a napkin automatically, tapped his knife in a perfect tempo. To anyone else, it was nothing. To me, it was a symphony of habits I couldn't unhear anymore. By the time we left the hall, the weight in my chest had only grown. The cabin greeted us with its tight spaces, its mixed smells, the shared air that made everything feel too close. The truth settled in with the evening quiet. The real challenge wasn't out there. It was in here. With him. Every breath, every second, every maddening, intimate moment we were forced to share. I was tiptoeing past the kitchenette, trying not to knock over my own shadow, when I saw him. Not CEO Julian. Not the razor-sharp, always calculating version everyone else got. Just him. He was crouched in the corner of the cabin, wiping down the links of his wristwatch with this tiny, spotless cloth. Not casually, not to clean fingerprints. No, each link, every hinge was tended to with the kind of slow, meditative care you'd expect from someone counting prayer beads. And the sound, God, the soft whisper of metal against cloth, hit me right in the chest. I froze, stomach tightening, ridiculous. Here I was, someone who'd spent weeks fantasizing about throttling him for being smug and infuriating, and I was standing still just watching him polish a watch, as if his whole world balanced on whether each link gleamed perfectly. He didn't look up. Of course he didn't. I don't think he even remembered other people existed when he was like this, which somehow made it worse. Or better. I still haven't decided. Then he straightened a stack of papers on the small table beside him. Not with irritation, not with urgency, just precise, exact movements, lining up every page like he was aligning the bones of a fragile creature. He exhaled softly, barely audible, as if that tiny breath was the only thing holding some internal chaos in place. This wasn't performance. This wasn't strategy. This was survival. And I felt it. That pull. That dangerous, impossible tug of curiosity. Why this ritual? Why this control? Why does it matter so much? My nurturer instinct, the one I pretend I don't have, twisted itself into a knot. A part of me wanted to laugh, another wanted to shake him, and another, wanted to help. I backed away slowly, quiet, careful. I didn't want to break whatever sacred bubble he lived in during these moments. I knew with absolute certainty that if he realized I was watching, he'd shut it down forever. And it hit me. Our tiny truce wasn't about rules or cooking or competition. It was about control, about fear. His order was a shield. My defiance kept poking at it without understanding the stakes. So I made a decision, a tiny rebellion. Nothing dramatic, just a crumb of disorder to see what he'd do. Would he snap? Would he show another crack? I waited with my heart thumping, palms itching, because suddenly this silly observation, this quiet little test, felt like the first real fracture in the wall between us. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a whisper rose I didn't want to hear. Could it be that the man who terrified me might also need me? So, I did it. I know, I can feel my pulse spike remembering it. But that morning, I left a tiny, harmless mess right in the middle of the cabin. A coffee cup sitting crooked on the table, a little bag of nuts with a few crumbs spilled like breadcrumbs from a fairy tale. Nothing catastrophic, just noticeable. A test. I waited. At first, nothing. Then Julian stepped into the doorway, calm face, perfect posture, eyes sweeping over the room like a scanner. He saw the mess. Not a single muscle moved. The air went thick. Burnt sugar and anxiety, and my heartbeat hammered under my ribs. I'd expected a hiss, maybe a clipped lecture, a blow-up. But Julian did something infinitely worse. He didn't speak. He documented. A few minutes later, a crisp printed note appeared on the counter. One sheet, perfectly aligned, edges sharp, his printing immaculate, and the words, deadly. Alara, please be reminded that communal spaces require adherence to agreed-upon cleanliness standards. The cup and nuts left on the counter violate Rule 7B. Kindly rectify by 1800 hours. The note might as well have been a courtroom subpoena. I read it twice, chest tightening, something metallic settling in my stomach. I crumpled the paper, not out of rage, not yet, but because I could practically feel the shiver in his control. He hadn't yelled, he hadn't even frowned. He'd weaponized his silence. It was terrifying. I'd rattled him. It was a victory that tasted like ice, sharp, cold, immediate. My adrenaline spiked, dread tangled with a twisted thrill, and I wondered what exactly I'd awakened. Because his control? That wasn't strength. It was the last line of defense, and I'd poked it. The tension crawled through the cabin like fog. I kept glancing at corners, half convinced he was watching, recalibrating, waiting. My triumph felt wrong, fragile, like tapping a crack in glass you know will eventually shatter. By the next morning, we were headed back into the communal kitchen. Neutral territory, except nothing between us was neutral anymore. And for the first time I realized, the danger wasn't outside. It was sitting right between us, heavy and metallic in the air. The kitchen was a beast, warm iron, scorched flour, wood smoke drifting like an old soul through the air, tools everywhere, ancient mixers the size of bathtubs, copper pots older than some countries, a wood-fired oven that breathed like it was alive. I felt at home. Julian looked like he'd been dropped into a war zone wearing silk gloves. He approached the massive dough mixer first, eyes darting over it like he was reading a blueprint. He touched the lever, stepped back, recalculated his stance like he was training for a robotics competition instead of baking bread. I wanted to roll my eyes. Instead, unease crept up my spine. He lifted the bowl like it was a fragile explosive, tense fingers, rigid arms, posture too perfect to be functional. The iron radiated heat, the weight shifted dangerously. My hand twitched with the urge to steady him, but I didn't. He needed to face this, and I needed to see if he could. The room filled with amplified sounds, scrapes, clanks, metal on stone. His movements were too calculated. No instinct, no flow, just theory and tension. And then I saw it. Fear. Not of losing, not of me, but of a world that refused to behave according to formulas. I hated how much that fear got inside my chest. A tiny part of me had wanted him to falter. Just a wobble, just enough to dent the arrogance. But that flicker vanished instantly under a wave of primal worry. Because if he slipped, if the iron tipped, if the oven spat one wrong breath of fire, he could get seriously hurt. I watched his face crack in subtle ways, a crease between his brows, a twitch in his fingers, his breath just a shade too sharp. And I knew he was fighting reality with his mind, trying to outlogic heat and mass and unpredictability. It was awful, and mesmerizing, and terrifying. And then it happened. A tiny miscalculation, barely a breath off. The metal tray slipped. There was no yell, no curse, just a faint hiss of heat on skin and the tiniest twitch of pain across his shoulders. His mask cracked for a split second, raw pain flashing in his eyes, before he forced it away and kept moving like nothing happened. I felt my entire chest drop. He tried to walk past me, voice clipped. It's fine. It wasn't fine, not even close. I stepped in front of him before I could overthink it. Stop. Don't move. He froze, annoyed, embarrassed. And underneath both, afraid I'd seen him break. Show me, I said, firm as steel. He hesitated, just long enough to make my stomach twist, then lifted his hand. The burn was angry, red, jagged. He tried to turn away, hide it, but I didn't let him. My eyes stayed locked on it, and on him. Everything between us went still, thick, hot air pulsing with things we didn't have names for yet. He tried one last attempt at control, straightening, preparing to march away and pretend this never happened. And that's when I snapped. Stop being an asset, Vance. It came out sharp, fast, zero room for negotiation. His eyes flicked to mine, ready to argue, but I didn't give him a single inch. You're bleeding. Sit down and let me fix you. For a heartbeat, I thought he might fight me. But then something in his posture shifted, subtle, reluctant. Recognition. He couldn't logic his way out of this one. I grabbed his arm, firm, guiding him toward the first aid station. He resisted for a breath, maybe two, but my grip didn't budge. Pride had no place here. The station smelled like antiseptic. My hands moved on instinct, cleaning, assessing, controlling the situation even if I couldn't control my heartbeat. Julian's skin was hot, tension running under every inch. A faint tremor flickered in his forearm, and it nearly undid me. The burn smelled sharp and metallic. His breath kept catching in tiny, almost invisible stutters. Drop the act, I murmured. Now. A soft, clipped exhale, his first real surrender. He let me take his hand. Let me see the damage. Let me, God, help him. Every motion I made was deliberate, clean, fast. My fingers worked over his skin, and he held still through sheer force of will. When he flinched, I caught his wrist immediately, steadying him. "I've got you," I said. Simple, solid. Not a comfort, just truth. And he didn't pull away. That was the moment everything shifted. Power flipping sides, control rearranging itself in the space between us. Julian Vance, untouchable, unshakable, infuriating, was relying on me. Quietly, completely. I wrapped the burn, secured it, checked his pulse and the lines of his posture. When I finally stepped back, he sat rigid and silent in the chair, jaw tight, eyes unreadable. But he'd let me take over, and he'd had no choice, and I hated him a little less right then. Not out of softness, but because, for one terrifying electric moment, he was entirely in my hands. I sat beside him, trying to pretend my hands weren't trembling. Every movement had to be careful, controlled, precise. The cooling balm jar was slick in my grip, the sharp menthol cutting through the heavy kitchen heat still hanging on my clothes. I rolled back the sleeve of his immaculate white shirt, and the second my fingers touched his skin, God, he was warm. Too warm. Heat radiated from the burn, but underneath it was something steadier, pulsing, alive. His pulse, fast, hard, right under my fingertips. I dabbed the balm onto the raw skin as gently as I could, and that's when I noticed his hands. Really noticed them. Rough palms, calluses, faint scars, nothing like the polished image he carried around like armor. His forearm tightened under my touch as I adjusted his wrist, positioning it so I could wrap the bandage cleanly. My hands held him, firm, steady, absolutely in control. Not a flirtation, not softness, just first aid. But the intimacy of it, brutal. My nerves fired at every brush of skin, every beat of his pulse, every shift of muscle. I hated that I noticed. Hated that it mattered. I wrapped the bandage with practiced tension, smoothing the edges so it wouldn't slip. And he let me. No argument, no flinch, no attempt to pull away. He followed my lead like surrender was the only option he had. Then I looked up, and everything inside me jolted. The CEO mask was gone. No steel jaw, no dry composure. Just pain. Physical? Yes. But also the kind that comes from losing control of something you've spent years gripping with white knuckles. His eyes held this quiet, terrifying trust. An unspoken plea not to make this worse. He watched every movement I made, like he'd given me his arm, his pain, his pride, and couldn't take any of it back. The hatred I'd been clinging to? Gone. Just gone. Not replaced by anything soft, not yet, but the sharp edges melted, leaving me with this awful, vulnerable empathy. He didn't hide the wince when I pressed near the tender skin. Didn't mask the tightness around his mouth or the crease between his brows. A thin line of sweat glimmered at his temple. Every detail whispered the same thing. I'm trying not to fail. I'm terrified. And I'm trusting you because I don't know how not to. I swallowed hard. He didn't pull away, I realized. He's letting me do this. Somewhere deep in my chest, something twisted. I finished the bandage slowly, smoothing the edge one last time. And as I did, he withdrew his arm, careful, almost reverent, and the sudden space between us felt enormous. The kitchen felt too big, too quiet, too changed. But I couldn't stop looking at him. At the rawness still flickering in his eyes, it shifted everything, permanently. He sat there, stoic as ever, but my hands were still tingling with the ghost of his heat. The metallic smell of the burn, mixed with caramelized sugar and kitchen smoke, clinging to my clothes, my hair, my skin. It felt like I'd been branded with the moment. I paced, boots echoing on the tiles, the silence wrapping around me like a pressure chamber. Why did I care this much? This was Julian, the opponent who'd made every day a tactical war. And yet I'd held him, steadied him, felt his pulse thrum beneath my palms. Why did it matter that he'd exhaled sharply when the balm hit the raw skin? Why did it haunt me that the tension in his fingers eased, just a fraction, while I worked? Was this empathy? Or something worse? Something far more dangerous? I dropped onto a stool, staring at nothing, heart racing. I'd spent months feeding a clean, simple hatred because it kept me sharp, safe, focused. And suddenly, it wasn't there. A tightness worked up my throat. If I couldn't hate him, how was I supposed to win? How was I supposed to protect what mattered most to me? Eventually, he stood, straightened his apron, every movement stiff with that practiced control he clung to like oxygen. He didn't speak, didn't glance at me, just offered a small, tight nod and walked out, leaving the kitchen hollow, echoing, stripped of oxygen. I sat trembling, breath shallow. Not from him, no. From the realization that I had crossed some irreversible line. I'd tended his wound, yes, but in doing it, I'd cracked something open in both of us. Something I wasn't ready for, and definitely couldn't ignore. The warm, yeasty kitchen smell was almost suffocating. My palms still felt the shape of his arm, and I hated it, truly hated it, because the stakes weren't just about the restaurant anymore. They'd become him, and that was the one battlefield I had no map for. Back in the cabin, his door was already shut. No footsteps, no murmurs, nothing. That silence pressed in like a gravitational force. I paced again, floorboards creaking under every restless turn. I imagined him on the other side of the wall, quiet, processing, maybe wounded in ways that had nothing to do with burns. A wave of guilt rushed up so fast it nearly choked me. Guilt for the accident, for touching him, for seeing him in a way he clearly hadn't wanted seen. My notes were useless. The pen slipped in my fingers. My eyes kept drifting to the closed door, like some magnetic pull I couldn't fight. Every second without sound from his side made my chest tighter. The cabin didn't feel neutral anymore. It felt shared, like something fragile had happened inside it and the room hadn't forgotten. I leaned against the wall, listening. Nothing. A silence that didn't soothe, it accused. And I realized I had his vulnerability in my hands, and I didn't know what to do with it. That thought alone terrified me more than any culinary showdown. I stepped outside for air. The night hit me like a plunge into cold water, pine, wet soil, a hint of smoke. My lungs finally expanded, and then I froze. Silas stood on the railing, arms crossed, face unreadable. He wasn't there to chat. He was there because he knew, maybe not the details, but the weight. "Alara," he said softly, observing, not accusing. The antiseptic smell still clung to me, and I swear it made his eyes narrow just enough to register understanding. "It was just an accident," I said, voice small, defensive. He didn't buy it for a second. "Accidents are easy," he said. "Healing is messy." I hated the truth in that. Then he tilted his head, sharpening his gaze. "Your victories? How real were they? How much was performance?" My stomach dropped. My throat tightened. I'd been playing strategy, not truth. Winning by maneuvering, not by feeling. His words scraped against every carefully constructed wall inside me. "You can win a battle with logic," he said, "but truth? That's how you win a war. And I haven't seen either of you tell the truth yet." My heart stuttered. He wasn't talking about cooking. He was talking about us, me and Julian. And everything tangled between us now. I didn't answer. Couldn't. But something inside me shifted, like a lock clicking open. My next move wasn't going to be about points. It was going to be about honesty. About courage. About him. Silas walked away, leaving me in the cold night, heart pounding, breath shaky. And I knew, deep in my bones, that if I didn't act from the heart now, I'd regret it forever. Back in the small kitchen, the air smelled of smoke and soap, familiar, grounding. My hands hovered over the ingredients, and for the first time since the competition started, I wasn't thinking about judges. I was thinking about him. I reached for something simple. Healing. A broth rich with root vegetables, herbs, garlic, ginger, warmth in liquid form. My knife moved gently for once, not with that sharp, competitive snap. I stirred slowly, letting the steam curl around my fingers. The smell was earthy, comforting, nurturing. A dish not to win, but to offer. A truth delivered by spoon. I ladled it into a small ceramic bowl and wrapped it in a towel to keep warm. As I walked toward his room, my heart thudded hard enough to shake my ribs. What if he pushed it away? What if he saw through me? What if this was the point I couldn't come back from? I stopped at his door, hand hovering inches from the wood. The broth warmed my palms. The moment tightened like a held breath. This knock, this choice, would change everything. I inhaled slowly, then raised my knuckles to knock. The knock came before I was ready. My palm tightened on the doorframe, the bowl of broth wobbling just enough to send a thin spill over the rim. I reminded myself this wasn't about winning. Not tonight. Not with him. Julian cracked the door open, and for once, that perfectly measured pause he always used before judging me was gone. His eyes flicked to the steam rising off the broth, then to my hands, then back up, sharp and questioning. "Alara," he said, low, almost a hiss. "You? What is this? Soup?" Simple. As if that answered anything. It didn't. Not for him. He straightened a little, the door still barely open between us. You don't have to do this. I can... His voice shifted into something stiff and rehearsed. Pay you. I can compensate. I nearly groaned. It's not business, I said softly, steadying my grip on the bowl. I'm not here to invoice you. For a long beat, he stared at me. I watched the disbelief flicker across his face, the tiny exhale he always tried to hide. And then he stepped back, silent, letting me in. No speech, just the click of the door closing. In that tiny concession, I felt the rules we'd both been clinging to crack. I guided him toward the living space, lightly, almost without touching. His posture was still rigid, shoulders squared like armor, but he let me lead him. When I set the bowl on the table, I caught the way he tried not to stare, as if the gesture itself disarmed him. He hovered his hands over the bowl before picking it up. Then came a quiet, reluctant, thank you. No flourish, no calculation, just honesty. The no personal talk rule? Yeah, consider it gone, broken by me. We sat, not too close, not too far. He shifted on the couch, settling his injured hand in his lap like he was still pretending nothing hurt. I stayed opposite him, calm, open, trying to make it clear this wasn't a game or a tactic. For the first time that day, the tension between us didn't scream. It hummed. Warm, fragile, almost gentle. And I knew we'd crossed a line neither of us could walk back from. We didn't sit across from each other long. Eventually, we ended up side by side, well, as close as the small cabin allowed. Julian cradled the bowl in both hands. Steam curled up and brushed his cheek, carrying the earthy, herb-warm scent I'd followed on instinct. Comfort food always smelled like safety, but tonight it felt like a confession. We tried talking. Tried. Soup's good, he said, stiff as ever. Glad you like it, I murmured, and the conversation promptly died. Silence slipped in, soft and heavy, but for once I didn't feel the urge to fill it. His eyes met mine for a second, then dropped back to the bowl like it could shield him. I just watched him. The cabin felt smaller, not tight, just intimate. The air held the quiet scent of herbs and wood. Outside, the darkness pressed against the windows. Inside, everything felt suspended, as if we'd been wrapped in a brief ceasefire. Little by little, the knot in my chest loosened. My brain kept whispering, don't trust him. But my body said something else. This is safe. For now. Minutes passed with nothing but soft slurps and the faint scrape of a spoon. And the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was protective. A quiet armistice for two people who'd exhausted every sharp edge they had. When he finally set the empty bowl aside, his hands still warm from it, I knew he was about to say what we'd both been circling. The reason behind his rigidity, the fire behind our rivalry. The air shifted. Expectation buzzed just slightly, and I braced myself. Not for a fight, for honesty. After a few quiet minutes, Julian finally spoke, not in that clipped CEO tone, but something lower, softer. These competitions, they're exhausting, he said. The pressure, the points, the constant measuring of worth. He wasn't looking at me. He was watching the steam curl up from the empty bowl, but I could feel the question forming before he asked it. Why Rossi's hearth, Alara? Why fight so hard for sentimentality when logic and numbers say it's not worth it? My breath stalled. His eyes were steady, curious, not judging, not attacking, trying to understand me. And that was somehow more terrifying. I wanted to dodge, joke, redirect, but he leaned forward just enough to keep me from slipping away. Come on, he said gently, with that quiet insistence he only used when he meant something. You've shown me everything else. Why hold this back? My heartbeat thudded in my throat. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was trying to solve me. I tried a weak laugh and deflected to some tiny detail about the broth. But he wasn't fooled. Not even a little. Uh-huh, he murmured. So you're gonna make me guess. Typical. A pause. But eventually, I'll know why you care so much. And that was the crack. Not in him, but in me. The shield I always held in front of him trembled. He wasn't just seeing the competitor anymore. He was seeing me. And that was dangerous. We sat there under the soft, flickering cabin light, and for a long moment we didn't speak. Then Julian leaned forward again, voice low and hesitant. I didn't start out wanting to control everything, he said. I thought passion was enough. I blinked. Not the Julian I knew. This voice wavered, barely audible but real. My father had a bakery, small, nothing special, bread, pies, I loved it. Every mess, every late night, all of it. His hand twitched as if he could steady the memory. But it fell apart, Debt, mismanagement, a client who never paid. I watched my family lose everything and I couldn't stop it. He swallowed, jaw tight. So I learned to control every detail, every outcome. I can't fail like that again. I can't watch someone else suffer because I wasn't careful enough. Passion alone doesn't save anything. The tremor in his voice, the flicker in his eyes, God, it was human, it was pain, it was fear. And suddenly, everything I'd hated about him made sense. He wasn't cruel. He was terrified. And something inside me cracked wide open. The air between us thickened with silence, heavy, waiting. He'd offered his fear with open hands, and the moment demanded mine in return. My throat felt tight from everything I now wanted to say, but couldn't yet. Julian wasn't untouchable anymore, and that scared me more than anything. After his confession settled over us like dust, the silence became almost too thick to breathe through. The heater hummed softly. The cabin floor creaked. I could feel every beat of my pulse. It was my turn. You want to know why I fight so hard? I whispered. It's not the competition. He watched me, patient, open, careful. My father ran Rossi's hearth before I did, and I loved it. Every mistake, every experiment, but he trusted the wrong people. And when everything collapsed, the debt fell on me. I swallowed hard. It wasn't just money. It was trust, responsibility. I couldn't walk away. I saw it in his face, the understanding, the empathy, not pity. Something deeper. I told myself kindness was enough, I said quietly, that if I worked hard and stayed honest, things would balance out. But they don't. You can be kind and it still doesn't fix anything. He shifted just slightly, but I felt it. Recognition, solidarity. We weren't adversaries in that moment. We weren't rivals. We were two people who knew exactly what it felt like to carry a fallen legacy on our backs. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of understanding, of shared scars, of truths neither of us had spoken aloud in years. Somewhere between those breaths, I realized healing had started. Not for the restaurant, not for the competition, for us. After all the confessions spilled into the quiet cabin air, something shifted. A pause settled between us, long, slow, almost sacred. It felt like the world finally stopped yelling. Julian set down his empty bowl with the softest clink. His hands, usually steady to the point of being infuriating, trembled just enough for me to notice. It wasn't weakness. It was honesty. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw a piece of his armor crack. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and unexpectedly gentle. Alara, you've carried so much, and you've done it without breaking, without letting the fight consume you. That takes a kind of strength most people don't even recognize. The words hit me harder than I expected. My shoulders loosened just a little. This wasn't a compliment. It wasn't flattery. It was recognition. And it landed in my chest like a careful hand. You think I'm strong? I asked, and my voice came out shakier than I'd intended. He nodded. You're more than your kitchen, more than the rules you cling to or the debts you're trying to outrun. You fight for things that matter, not for control, not for reputation, for what's right. And that says a lot about who you are. My throat tightened, and because balance demanded it, because he'd handed me truth, I gave him one back. And you, Julian, you're terrified of failing, of repeating the past, but it's not cruelty that drives you, it's fear. And I get that. I really do. I see it. I see you. He blinked once, just once, and the air between us shifted. We weren't opponents anymore. Not circling, not calculating, not waiting for the other to drop their guard. We were just two people with scars that finally made sense. The room felt thick with it, this quiet acknowledgement that everything had changed. His shoulders relaxed, his jaw softened, even the tension around his eyes eased. Then he leaned back, voice barely above a whisper. You're fighting for more than a restaurant, Alara. You're fighting for survival. I understand that. In that moment, we traded something heavier than words. Respect. Validation. A small, fierce promise that neither of us had to carry everything alone. We didn't touch, but the space between us hummed with warmth. The night deepened. Shadows curled around the cabin. But in that small room, something fragile and real had taken root. We separated for the night quietly. No ceremony, no awkward goodbyes. Just two people who finally stopped pretending. When I lay down, my mind still felt the heat of the broth and the even warmer truths we'd shared. I knew that whatever we'd created tonight wouldn't disappear with sleep. It was a tether, delicate and impossible to ignore. Morning came like a cold draft through the cabin, sharp, crisp, and heavy with tension. I woke to soft footsteps on the wooden floor. Julian sat by the window, staring out at the forest, like it might answer the questions he didn't dare ask out loud. I avoided his eyes. Instead, I busied myself with the coffee pot like it was suddenly the most complicated machine on earth. The steam rose around me, smelling like home, but not quite mine anymore. 2 mugs, 2 careful pours, outwardly steady. Inwardly, my pulse was doing Olympic-level gymnastics. He glanced over. Just a flicker. But enough to remind me that last night had rewired us completely. "Coffee?" I asked, keeping my voice as plain as I could manage. "Thanks," he said. Quiet. Careful. Acknowledging everything without saying anything. We dressed in this strange, too-loud silence. Zippers, fabric, shifting weight on old floorboards. Neither of us looked up. His movements were neat and controlled, but softer than before. Mine were, well, deliberate avoidance. When we finally stepped outside, the sun broke over the ridges, lighting up the frost and pine. I felt it immediately. The impossible, dangerous truth. I could still beat him. I could still win. But I couldn't hurt him to get there. That distinction alone was going to ruin me. Every glance, every slow step toward the hall where Chef Silas waited, carried the weight of everything we hadn't said. The rivalry wasn't gone, but it wasn't clean anymore. It was tangled, human. The forest around us was quiet, indifferent. But the shadows from the cabin followed us like reminders. Once you share something real, you can't pretend you didn't. Today would demand everything: skill, restraint, and the sheer courage not to let my heart give me away. Inside the kitchen hall, the shift between us was almost visible. Not dramatic, not friendly, but different. He wasn't my enemy anymore, at least not in the old sharp-edged way. But that didn't make him any less dangerous. Chef Silas walked in, tapping his clipboard like he could hear our unspoken conversations bouncing off the walls. His eyes flicked between us. "Noticeably different," he said. "Less antagonism. I hope you've saved some fight for the challenge." I glanced at Julian, and for once he wasn't hiding behind that cold, polished facade. He stood relaxed, shoulders easy, eyes softer. And God help me, I almost reacted, almost smiled, almost let the truth slip through. I still had to beat him, but I respected him now, I cared, and that combination was poison. Silas laid out the challenge, crisp and brutal. 1 task, 1 winner, 1 loser. No wiggle room, no compromise. A zero-sum game with consequences none of us dared name. The weight settled over me like iron. Julian stood steady beside me. But when our eyes met, that single look said more than any rule book. Trust, recognition, a hint of something painfully close to tenderness. The air thickened. Silas stepped back. This was it. Whatever fragile truce we'd built was stitched together with scars and late-night confessions, and now we were about to test it. Strategies roared in my head. My heart folded itself into knots. One final look. Lingering. Loaded. We weren't just competitors anymore, and that terrified me. Of course it had to be Silas who broke the tension the next morning. He walked in smiling like a monk about to teach us inner peace. Today, no knives, no stations. You two get a mental cleanse. A day off. A mandatory one. I swear I would have preferred another blindfolded souffle marathon. Julian didn't react, just a small nod, the kind that said he was spiritually above stress. Meanwhile, I was mentally preparing either to strangle him with a dish towel or, worse, accidentally say something kind. Because the kitchen had rules. Boundaries. I knew exactly how to hate him in there. Out here, without timers and stainless steel, pure chaos. When Silas said, "Spend the day however you want," I heard, "Let's see if you can survive each other unsupervised." Julian broke the silence first. "I'll be working remotely," which translated to sitting stiffly with his tablet while avoiding eye contact. "Right," I said. "I'll not be around for that." But the cabin was tiny. You could hear the other person breathe. His coffee smelled like dark roast and citrus. My brain was melting. After an hour of pretending not to exist, he finally sighed. "We should go out." Suspicious. "Out where?" "There's a small market near the main road. Neutral territory." Neutral territory. As if we were diplomats negotiating peace after a war. I should have said no. Truly. But the air in that cabin was starting to feel like burnt caramel, sticky and suffocating. I needed out. "Fine," I muttered, grabbing my jacket. The walk down the mountain was too quiet, too aware. Every crunch of gravel under my boots made me hyper-conscious of him beside me. His steady stride, his controlled breathing, the infuriating rhythm of a man who strategizes even while walking. "So," I said finally, "do you ever relax? Or is this your version of it?" He looked at me, dead serious. "I'm relaxing right now." I laughed. "Then God help your therapist." He almost smiled, the tiniest twitch. It threw my equilibrium off more than any insult he'd ever given me. The market was a postcard: wooden stalls, bright fruit, tomatoes that smelled like sunlight. A band somewhere played an accordion that desperately needed tuning. Julian froze like someone had unplugged him. The man who could dissect a Michelin kitchen looked lost in a farmer's market. "This is chaotic," he murmured. "That's the point," I said, grinning. He looked at me like I'd said something profound. We drifted through the stalls, never too close, never fully apart. I bartered for herbs. He pretended to evaluate produce like it was part of a corporate risk assessment. Every time I turned, I caught him watching me, quickly, subtly, uncertain. It felt too real, too human, too much like something I wasn't prepared to name. By noon, we'd run out of reasons to stay. The weird domestic politeness between us was getting heavy. Honestly, spending a whole day with him, no knives, no scores, felt like the most terrifying challenge yet. It felt like a date. And of course, I hadn't dressed for it. When we reached the road again, Julian gestured forward, offering the smallest truce. "There's a diner about a mile down," he said. "We could get something before heading back." And I nodded, too quickly. Apparently, my self-preservation had taken the day off too. The market was Julian's idea, if you can believe that. After everything we just slogged through, the mental cleanse, his tight little nod, my desperate need to breathe literally any air that wasn't cabin-flavored, he decided a crowded market would be neutral territory. Neutral. Sure, like tossing a wolf and a deer into a pen and calling it an even match. The moment we stepped into that maze of color and noise, I felt him short-circuit. The air was alive. Fried dough, fresh herbs, roasting coffee, fish from the next stall over. People brushed past without apology, coins clinked, babies wailed, vendors shouted like they were trying to summon the dead. I loved it instantly. Julian looked like he'd been transported to another planet. He moved through the crowd like contamination was a genuine threat. Every muscle was wired tight, shoulders rigid under that pristine shirt that probably came pre-sterilized. I could hear his discomfort, the clipped huffs through his nose, the steady little breaths of a man holding panic at bay by sheer willpower. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Chaos feels like home to me. The spices, the wood smoke, the sweat, the uneven rhythm of a place that doesn't care who you are. It's alive, messy, real. Watching him flounder in it, bonus entertainment. He stopped at a tomato stall, bright red, sun-warm, a little lopsided, and picked one up like it might detonate. "This one's fine?" he said, like he needed confirmation from a higher authority. I couldn't resist. "You look like an algorithm trying to understand a flower." He cut me a look, half annoyed, half genuinely lost. "I'm assessing quality." "It's a tomato, Julian, not a business acquisition." He rotated the poor thing like it had a quarterly earnings report. "There's bruising on the underside." "That's called life," I said, grinning. He stared at the tomato, then set it down very gently, like he didn't want to hurt its feelings. I almost died trying not to laugh. For the first 15 minutes, we pretended we were shopping separately. I drifted toward the herbs, basil so fresh it smelled like green sunlight, while he examined loaves of bread with surgical precision. Didn't matter. I always knew where he was. That weird sixth sense thing when someone's presence keeps tugging at your attention? Yeah, that. Except it wasn't watching, it was orbiting. No matter what I reached for, I felt him 3 stalls away, pretending not to look, but tuned in anyway. And I hated that I noticed. Then came the mishap. An older woman was selling glass bottles of infused oil, garlic, chili, rosemary, each sealed with wax. I leaned in to smell one, just as a kid barreled past and bumped the table. Crash. The bottles toppled like dominoes. Instinct took over. I grabbed one, too slow. One was already falling. And then his hand was just there. Julian caught it midair. Clean, precise, effortless. His fingers brushed mine, warm and steady, before he straightened and handed the bottle back with this maddeningly calm, "Apologies, ma'am." I blinked up at him, half crouched, pulse doing something deeply unprofessional. He didn't even look at me, just dusted off his hands like saving flying glass was in his job description. My skin, where he'd touched me, was buzzing. I hated that too. The vendor beamed. Such a gentleman. If only she knew. We spent another hour pretending to be normal people. People who didn't despise each other, didn't share a cabin, didn't know each other's secrets whispered in the dark. But something shifted. Every time he flinched at a loud noise or frowned at a crooked table, I didn't see arrogance anymore. I saw vulnerability. A man stripped of his armor. And that's when the curiosity started. The reluctant, dangerous kind. Because watching him in that market, overwhelmed by something as simple as buying fruit, I realized his control wasn't confidence. It was panic. He needed order, like oxygen, and in all that chaos, he couldn't breathe. I should have found that funny, but I didn't. It felt like watching someone drown in daylight. Right after the tomato fiasco, when I was still trying not to grin every time he glared at a vegetable, that's when the universe delivered its masterpiece. We were squeezing through a narrow lane shoulder to shoulder, swept along by the crowd. The air smelled like everything at once. Grilled meat, burnt sugar, fish, peaches collapsing under their own sweetness. My head was spinning in the best possible way. His? Judging by his face, not so much. He held a small paper bag of olives, still warm from the brine stand, looking absurdly proud. "See?" he said, tilting the bag. "Perfectly preserved, uniform in size." Then a blur of fur shot out from under a bread stall. A dog, half chaos incarnate, launched itself between us, snatched the entire bag from his hand, and sprinted away like it had trained for this moment its whole life. He froze, mid-word, mid-breath, just frozen, hands still out like the olives might reappear if he wished hard enough. I tried, really. I tried so hard not to lose it. Then I snorted. That sound alone destroyed his composure. He stared at me, stared at his empty hand, stared at the dog disappearing with an olive flopping out of its mouth, and whispered, baffled, "It stole my lunch." I folded in half laughing. The vendor yelled in Italian, someone dropped lemons behind us, and everything blurred. Noise, light, chaos. And then Julian laughed. Not the stiff, polite huff he used in meetings. Not the smug little chuckle when he thought he'd outsmarted me. A real laugh. From the chest, loose and bright and completely unguarded. I froze. I'd never seen him happy before. Not satisfied, not victorious. Happy. If laughter had a color, his would have been sunlight caught in honey. I felt it right in my ribs, warm and dangerous. I think I muttered something. Maybe even the dog knew you needed to loosen up. He grinned, actually grinned. Crooked, surprised, like the smile had escaped on its own. For a moment, in that noisy, ridiculous market, we weren't rivals or enemies or anything sharp. We were just people. When the laughter finally faded, he glanced around, still wearing that faint smile. Maybe we should leave before something else attacks. I nodded, because my voice wasn't taking questions. We slipped out of the market onto the dirt path leading toward the hills, the noise falling behind us until all we heard was wind in the trees. And somewhere between his laugh and that quiet walk, I felt the floor shift. It wasn't a truce anymore. It was a connection. And that terrified me. After the great olive heist, with my ribs still aching and his shirt smelling faintly like brine, we just kept walking. The market faded into the distance, replaced by cicadas and warm, heavy summer air that tasted like sunlight if you breathed deep enough. He suggested the walk, naturally. A short break, to clear the palate, he'd said. Because Julian can't relax without accidentally sounding like a poetic chef. I didn't argue. I was still trying to process the whole laughing like a human moment. At first, we didn't talk, didn't need to. The air between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was charged, light but volatile, like standing under a thundercloud waiting to decide if it wants to crack. Halfway up the trail, we reached a little stream. Just a thin slice of water you could hop over easily if you were paying attention. Julian was not. He stopped at the edge, crouching with ridiculous focus. "The moss looks unstable. It's a rock, not a stock portfolio," I said. He gave me a look and stepped forward and slipped. Just one quick skid and a splash, but the water soaked his perfect trousers and the sound he made, God, it was priceless. Startled, unpolished, absolutely human. I bit down on my lip, looked at the trees, the sky, anything. I failed. He saw it coming. Don't what?" I said, already cracking. "Alara, too late," and I broke. Full laughter, bright and stupid and impossible to stop. He sighed, and for a second I thought he'd retreat behind that cold armor again. But then he smiled, slow, helpless, a real surrender. You find this funny? Devastatingly, I wheezed. You look like a malfunctioning professor. He glanced down at himself, shoes sinking into the mud. Not inaccurate. I stepped forward automatically and held out my hand. He hesitated for half a second, then took it. His grip was warm, steady, human. It jolted me. How close we suddenly were, how his shoulder brushed mine, how he smelled like earth and steel and something clean beneath it all. For a heartbeat, we just stood there, his pulse thudding under my fingers, and something in me softened, melted even, because he wasn't the untouchable strategist in that moment. He was just a man, mud on his trousers, hair out of place, trying not to drown in embarrassment. An unexpected ache hit right behind my ribs. Protective and irrational, and not at all friendly. I let go first, faking interest in brushing dirt off my jeans. So, I said, how does it feel being conquered by a stream? He gave a half smile. I miscalculated the friction coefficient. You slipped, I said. He huffed a small laugh. Yes, I slipped. We kept walking, side by side. The quiet between us was easy now, full of rustling leaves and soft footfalls. By the time we looped back toward the road, the sun was dropping low, turning everything a warm amber that made the whole world feel softer. And for a moment, I forgot we were supposed to be enemies. I caught myself smiling at him, muddy, rumpled, achingly human, and thought, what are you doing, Alara? Because this wasn't strategy. It wasn't survival. It was me, dangerously close to falling for the man I was supposed to destroy. After the whole stream fiasco, him dripping, me pretending I wasn't staring at the way his hair curled when it dried, we wandered downhill until we stumbled on this little diner. The kind with a flickering neon sign, a parking lot coated in dust and cicadas, and that familiar mix of fryer oil and stale coffee that somehow feels like a hug from the universe. That's probably why we went in. We were too tired to keep up any kind of performance. Inside, the air was cool and humming with that soft, buzzing light that makes everything look a little older and kinder. The waitress didn't bother looking up when we slid into a booth. She just dropped 2 menus, a jug of water, and mumbled, "Kitchen's slow. Sit tight." Perfect. No cameras, no pressure. Just the 2 of us, sunburned, mud-streaked, and starving. He ordered the plainest thing imaginable, grilled cheese and black coffee. Of course he did. I went with pancakes because I desperately wanted something soft and sweet that wouldn't argue with me. For the first few minutes, we just sat there listening to the hum of the refrigerator and watching dust swirl through a beam of sunlight. Weirdly peaceful. I remember thinking, is this what normal people feel like? Just being in the same space without calculating every move? Then he asked, out of nowhere, when did you start cooking? Not why I cook. Not how I turned it into a business. Just when. Like he wanted the origin point before ambition and rivalry took over. I actually had to think. When I was 10, I said, my mom worked nights. If I didn't figure out dinner, we just didn't eat. He looked at me like he was piecing the memory together inside his head. So necessity first, passion second. Maybe, but it became something else. Cooking was control. The world could be chaos, but if you got the temperature right, if you whisked enough air into the batter, suddenly things made sense. He smiled. Not the polished, public kind. A small, crooked, real one. I get that. My version was model airplanes. Model airplanes? He nodded, sheepish. I was that kid. Gluing tiny plastic wings together while everyone else played soccer. My father hated it. That made the air shift a little. He didn't usually talk about his father. What'd he want you to do? I asked. Win. Julian said simply, didn't matter at what. There it was, the tiny crack in his voice. Easy to miss, impossible to unhear. The food arrived just then. His sandwich was half burnt, my pancakes too pale, and somehow that made them perfect. He cut his diagonally like a lunatic, and I laughed. You're one of those people. He raised an eyebrow. One of what people? Diagonal cutters. It's a personality type. Oh, really? He leaned in, amused. And what's yours? Chaotic syrup enthusiast. I drowned my pancakes in maple until the plate looked fossilized. He shook his head, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. And for the first time, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was full. We talked for hours. Music we grew up with. The first terrible things we ever cooked. Places we wanted to visit someday. No business. No stakes. Just stories. At some point, between coffee refills and my cooling pancakes, I realized I'd stopped guarding my words. I wasn't defending Rossi's hearth. I was just me. Then he asked, "What would you do if you weren't running the restaurant?" And that one hit hard. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. My identity had been welded to that place, to keeping it alive, to fighting him off. Without it, who was I? He must have seen something in my face because his voice softened. "You don't have to know," which somehow made it worse. I should have told him the truth, that maybe I didn't want freedom from the restaurant. Maybe I wanted freedom from the constant war, from this push and pull that always led back to him. But I just smiled and said, "You first." He leaned back, thinking. I'd have a little place by the water, nothing fancy, quiet. I'd cook simple meals, maybe write. Write what? He shrugged lightly. Recipes, stories, doesn't matter. Then softer. I just want something that's mine, not a legacy, not a statement. That unraveled me, because it was exactly what I'd always wanted, and hearing him say it felt like he'd stolen the words right out of my ribs. By the time we left, the sky was dark, the diner windows fogged with grease and coffee steam. Outside, the air was cool and smelled like river water. He offered me his jacket. It was barely warmer than the night air, but the gesture felt unexpectedly intimate. Quiet, unperformed. We walked back in silence, our shoulders brushing now and then, neither of us stepping away. And that silence, full and humming, was worse than any argument because it held everything we weren't saying. Desire, fear, and the terrifying possibility that maybe we could have been something else entirely. But that was before I knew what he'd do next. On the way back, the night had gone completely still. The kind of stillness that makes you hyper-aware of everything. The hum of the engine, the warmth of the seat, even your own heartbeat sounding too loud. The road wound through the trees, the headlights carving out tiny pockets of gold in all that black. Julian was driving, which was hilarious in its own way. The man handled a steering wheel like it was a fragile equation. Perfect posture. 10 and 2. Every turn negotiated like a treaty. I remember thinking, God, he's so careful. And for some reason, it made me want to laugh. Or maybe it made me want something else entirely. It started small. His hand dropped from the wheel for a second, maybe adjusting the radio, maybe stretching, and brushed against mine on the console. Just a graze. But it was enough. That jolt, the one your body recognizes before your brain can name it. Yeah, that one. Neither of us moved. He didn't pull away. I didn't either. The air shifted immediately, thick and charged, like static before a storm. I tried to look out the window, focus on the trees or the stars, but my skin was too aware of him, of the heat radiating from his sleeve. The faint scent of his cologne mingling with river air. Every breath tasted like anticipation. Then the car jolted around a sharp bend, and his hand came down again, this time fully over mine. Maybe instinct. His palm was warm, a little rough in places I'd never noticed, steady enough to make my pulse climb straight into my throat. He didn't look at me, didn't say anything. Just kept driving with his hand covering mine like we'd silently agreed not to break the moment with words. My brain went into panic mode. This is a mistake. He's still Julian. This is dangerous. My body didn't care. That light, accidental brush of his thumb nearly undid me. I think he felt it too, because the moment stretched, trembled, then snapped. He pulled his hand back, jaw tight. The silence that followed was brutal. Every sound, the tires, the vents, felt too loud, too sharp. Finally, he cleared his throat. "You're quiet." I wanted something witty. Instead, "So are you." We pulled into the cabin drive, gravel hissing beneath us. The headlights spilled over the porch like a spotlight on every thought we were trying not to think. When the engine shut off, the night rushed in. Crickets, pine, the faint warmth between us that refused to fade. He got out first, came around, and opened my door. Old-fashioned. Annoyingly sweet. I stepped out, and for half a heartbeat, we stood too close. Close enough to feel the warmth of his breath near my temple. That pull was back. Magnetic. Reckless. I don't know who moved first. Maybe neither of us did. But the air felt like it was waiting for a verdict. Then he murmured, "Good night, Alara," and the spell cracked. "Good night," I whispered, stepping back. He hesitated, his hand twitching like he wanted to reach out again but didn't trust himself, then headed inside. I stayed out there for a long moment, porch light buzzing overhead, cool air brushing my skin. My hand still tingled where he'd held it, the warmth refusing to fade. That was when I admitted it to myself. The hatred was gone, completely evaporated. All that was left was a terrifying, impossible need that was a walking HR violation for both of us. And I didn't want it to stop. When I finally went inside, the cabin didn't feel like the same place. It felt smaller, warmer, packed with something electric and dangerous. Julian followed a few steps behind. I couldn't hear his words, there were none, but I could hear him. The soft drag of his boots, the hitch in his breathing. Somehow that was worse. We didn't look at each other. I hung my jacket on the peg, fingers still trembling slightly, not from the cold, from him. "You should get some rest," he said, voice rough around the edges. "Yeah, long day." We stood there, not moving, held in a silence that felt like it had a pulse. The fridge hummed, the cabin creaked, but beneath all of it was that thrumming, electric tension. I finally turned to say goodnight, only to find him much closer than I expected. His eyes were softer than they should have been, his jaw too tight, and I swear if he'd said my name like that again, I wouldn't have survived it. But he only nodded. "Good night, Alara." Somehow, it sounded like a dare. "Good night," I breathed back. He stepped aside, and when my shoulder brushed his chest on the way past, the shiver that shot through me was instant and merciless. I didn't look back. Couldn't. In my room, the air was just as charged. The smell of cedar and herbs mixed with the ghost of his cologne, clinging to me like it had followed me inside. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the thin wall that separated us. I could almost hear him on the other side. Footsteps, a soft exhale. There wasn't any air left in the cabin, just tension and the dangerous possibility of what would happen if either of us lost the last thread of restraint. I turned off the lamp. Darkness made everything louder. My heart beat. The wind outside, the imagined rhythm of his breathing through the wall. At one point, I heard him shift. Maybe it could have been nothing. My whole body reacted anyway. Neither of us knocked. We just lay there, separated by a few feet of wood and way too much self-control, pretending to sleep. And in that silence, I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't fading. It was growing. Waiting. Fire under the floorboards. I was lying flat on the bed, staring at the ceiling like it might suddenly decide to hand over some answers. It didn't. It never does. The air was sticky and heavy, like the whole room had swallowed the heat from the day and refused to let it go. And on the other side of the thin cabin wall, Julian was moving around. I could hear everything. The scrape of his boots on the wood, the soft shift of his weight, the faint click of his dresser latch. Every sound hit me like a pulse, feeding the tight ache building in my chest. My heartbeat had gone completely off script, skipping, hammering, twisting my stomach into knots. I kept telling myself to stay still. Think logically. Control, Alara. Don't breathe, don't reach, don't let this become what it's threatening to become. But my body had zero interest in obeying. Every nerve was awake, buzzing, leaning toward him. I imagined him on the other side of that wall, pacing like a restless animal, fighting the same chaotic pull. Could he feel this too? The gravity between us? Probably, definitely. I tried to think about anything else. The competition, recipes, the smell of rosemary and charred onions. But my brain kept circling back to the way his hand had brushed mine in the car earlier. Just a second too long. Just enough to short-circuit me, and I still hadn't recovered. Time went strange. Minutes stretched, maybe even hours, each breath a slow crawl. Every shift from his room made my pulse jump, daring me to break every rule I'd been clinging to. Desire roared through my veins, and rational thought was hanging on by a thread. My hands itched to reach for him. My mouth felt dry, my chest was tight, and then I heard it. A soft, hesitant scrape at my door. Not forceful, not confident, just there. A presence. My stomach dropped so fast, I swear my lungs didn't know what to do with themselves. My heart exploded into double time. My mind screamed don't and yes in the same breath. The last fragile barrier I'd been holding snapped the moment the doorknob turned. And just like that, I knew nothing in this cabin was staying the same. I could feel him even before I saw him. My fingers clenched around the blanket, knuckles white, heart pounding so loud it felt embarrassing. Then that shuffling stop, Julian going still right outside my door, tightened the space around me like the walls were holding their breath. A pause, a hesitation, and then the quietest scrape of a knock. Or maybe it was my own hand brushing the cold brass handle. Hard to tell when your whole chest feels like it's about to burst. I didn't even finish my inhale before I turned the handle and opened the door. There he was, Julian, not even a foot away. His presence filled the hallway, warm, sharp, unmistakably him. His cologne mixed with something raw and human, and the smell alone hit me harder than any confession. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. The electricity between us wasn't subtle. It crackled in the air like a live wire. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, asking the one question he didn't say out loud. "Are you sure?" And I answered without words. Yes, the cost, the risk, the fact that everything could burn because of this. My body didn't care. My pulse said more than any speech could. The doorway felt like a thin slice of no man's land, but neither of us moved back. Every rule, every competitive edge, every safe distance, we'd already dropped them. He braced a shoulder against the frame, watching me with that unreadable intensity. And when he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady. "Sit. Really? After all that?" But I sat. My legs felt heavy, like the air itself had weight, but I obeyed. And in that tiny act, the last thread of our professional truce snapped. Silence stretched between us, thick, intimate, impossible to avoid. The doorway had become the stage for every truth we'd tiptoed around. The dam hadn't burst yet, but I could feel the first crack forming. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands clenched in my lap like I could hold myself together. Julian leaned against the opposite wall, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes sharp, but softer now. Guarded, but not impenetrable. The silence got too heavy, and I couldn't hold it anymore. "I'm scared," I whispered. Words felt safer than letting my hands shake. Scared that the hearth, all of this, is just sentimentality, that I'm chasing something already slipping away. His eyes softened, cautious but listening. "The reason I fight so hard," I said quietly, "is because if I lose the hearth, I lose the last piece of her I can touch, and I don't know who I am without it." I saw something shift in him, a twitch in his shoulder, something he was holding back. And God, it terrified me because I just handed him everything. My grief, my fear, my truth, placed it right in his hands. I met his eyes, steady, open, inviting. "Your turn," I whispered. "Tell me something you've never told anyone. Something that scares you like this scares me." His gaze darkened, complicated, and the weight of his silence pressed into my chest. Whatever he said next would change everything. He didn't answer right away. He just paused. But this pause wasn't calculated. It was heavy, like something inside him had finally cracked. When he spoke, his voice was nothing like the Julian I'd known. "I don't control things because I want power," he said quietly. "I control them because if I stop, I'm afraid I'll fall apart, and my shame will destroy me." It hit me like a jolt, because I recognized it. That same raw fear I'd carried for years. This wasn't the rival I'd sparred with. This was Julian, stripped down to the truth he'd never let anyone see, and the pull between us became unbearable. I stepped forward before I even knew I was moving, and when he leaned in too, when our lips met, the choice was already made. It wasn't logic, it wasn't strategy, it was instinct, inevitable and consuming. Every boundary dissolved. We kissed like we'd been holding our breath for months. The silence shattered between us the second our lips met. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Julian took a step closer, slow, deliberate, and every nerve in my body lit up. He didn't speak, but he didn't need to. His eyes were asking for permission and daring me to take what I wanted. The first kiss wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hot, fierce, like he'd been starving for this. His mouth tasted like smoke and cinnamon, completely him, and every frustration, every longing poured into that moment. My hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, anchoring myself against the solid heat of him. He held me just as tightly, hands tracing my arms, my back, learning me, memorizing me. We broke just long enough to breathe, foreheads pressed together, breath mingling, and then he kissed me again. Harder, needier, a wordless plea I answered with everything in me. The world outside that doorway vanished. We moved together instinctively, drawn toward the bed with a force that felt bigger than either of us. The tension we'd been carrying for weeks finally combusted. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't polite. It was a release, a surrender, a collapse of every wall we'd built. Everything shifted after that first kiss. The air itself felt charged, crackling with all the emotions we'd buried under competition and control. Julian wasn't careful anymore. His hands shook when they touched me, not from hesitation, but from the sheer relief of finally letting go. I felt his heart pounding through his shirt, fast, unsteady, human. The perfection he always wore like armor had shattered, and the man touching me now was raw and terrified and breathtaking. His lips brushed mine again, slower this time, almost reverent, and something inside him unraveled. I felt it. I felt him. The room smelled like us, heat and skin, and that faint spice of him that clung to every breath I took. Every sigh, every sound from him was a confession he didn't know how to speak. He didn't want power. He wanted release, and he trusted me with it. The realization hit me deep. He wasn't surrendering to desire. He was surrendering to me, the unguarded, uncontrolled version of himself he never showed anyone. And I wanted him, this version of him, with a fierce, reckless certainty. So we kept going, letting the moment take us, letting every wall fall away until all that was left was need and heat and the unmistakable truth that we were unraveling together. Raw, unfiltered, fire. After everything, after the confessions, the surrender, the loss of control, there was no pause, no hesitation, just him, just me, and the weight of every unsaid thing pressing us together. His hands weren't careful anymore. They didn't trace boundaries or measure edges. They clutched, searched, anchored. And I let them. I melted into him because for the first time I could feel his truth, not just the polished mask. His chest pressed into mine, hot and trembling, every heartbeat a drum pulling me closer. Every muscle, every shiver, every tension unraveling, and it made me tremble too. I wanted to hold it. All of it, all of him, all of us, before the world intruded again. I remember the sound, his breath, ragged and uneven, breaking sometimes with a soft groan that was not shameful, not controlled. Human. It drove me wild. Every exhale, every hitch in his chest pressed urgency into me. I wasn't just giving myself to him physically. I was giving him trust, raw and complete. My arms wrapped around him, my hands pressing into the lines of his back, and I felt the rigid tension he carried in his shoulders beginning to dissolve. It wasn't just sex. It could never be just that. Every touch, every press of lips to skin was a wordless promise. I see you. I accept you. And he let himself be seen in ways I'd never imagined possible. The air smelled thick around us. Heat, something intimate, uniquely Julian, smoky, faintly metallic, familiar. The sheets tangled us into a small universe where nothing else existed. My pulse raced with his, every brush of skin a tether, anchoring us both to the same undeniable truth. We needed this, needed each other. And suddenly, I understood. The reason we'd always sparred the way we'd challenged each other, it had always been for this authentic connection. Now, stripped bare, no pretense left, Julian's need for release mirrored my own hunger to trust, to feel safe, to be held completely. I could feel him letting go, and I let myself sink further into the storm. No fear, only presence, only the raw, intimate electricity flowing between us. This wasn't a distraction from the competition. It was the reason for it. The pull, the fight, the stakes, all prelude to this quiet, terrifying need for connection. He groaned again, softer, and it cut straight through me. I pressed closer, tracing the planes of his back, memorizing each tremor, each exhale. Every surrendered movement made me ache to hold him firmer, as if keeping him close could stitch together every frayed edge of both of us. And then the noise shifted. Heartbeats sinking, chests rising and falling together, the subtle tremor of relief that comes after holding something too long. We were spent, but full, trembling, breathless, aware that for this suspended moment, the world outside, the competition, the stakes, the chaos, didn't exist. I rested my forehead against his, inhaling the warmth, tasting fire, fear, desire. And I thought, this is it, this quiet, terrifying need for connection. This is why we fought, why we survived, why it matters. And for that single breath, it was enough. After the storm, after the confessions, the fire, the surrender, I could finally look at him, really look. And oh, Julian, he wasn't the man I sparred with in boardrooms, or the controlled mask I'd spent weeks trying to read. No, in that aftermath, he was achingly real. His chest rose and fell, subtle tremors running through his shoulders. Sweat clung to fine hairs at his temples, glistening. A faint quiver passed through his jaw as he exhaled. The line of tension in his face, the armor he always wore, was gone. For the first time, the man behind the machine was just there, and I saw something I had never been allowed to see. Julian's fear laid bare, raw, naked, the terror of being truly seen. His eyes met mine, wide and vulnerable. A punch to the gut, Every shred of control unraveling, a confession without words. He wasn't just withdrawing physically, he was struggling to retreat from being human in front of someone else. The man I'd lusted after, loathed and sparred with, gone. Only the fragile, trembling human remained. I couldn't stop staring. I didn't want to. A weight settled in my chest, heavy and tender. I held his gaze, letting it sink in, letting the knowledge of what I had just witnessed, and now held emotionally, settle. I didn't just have him here physically. I had the part of him he never gave anyone, and the responsibility was terrifying. His fingers twitched against the sheets, brushing the fabric like he was afraid to touch the world. Tension in his forearms, a slight tightening in his back, shallow, uneven breaths, all whispering the same truth. Julian wanted this closeness, but it scared him. God, it terrified him. And I wanted to hold it all, cradle it, protect it. I remembered that dizzying clarity mid-storm. I hadn't just won the night. I'd found the man inside the machine. And the realization hit harder now. The stakes weren't just physical. They were emotional, binding. He shifted slightly, a subtle retreat, and my heart clenched. Not from rejection, but because I knew he was choosing to hide again, even now. Even after everything. He wasn't rejecting the moment. He was rejecting the vulnerability itself. We settled into fragile stillness. His hands, once frantic, now lay lightly on the sheets, hesitant. Head tilted slightly, jaw slack, eyes flicking toward me in quiet acknowledgement. I reached out, fingertips brushing the curve of his arm, the safest, smallest touch. He flinched a little, but didn't pull away. Monumental. The air still smelled of him. Warmth, sweat, faint cologne, and the echo of ragged breaths lingered. My chest ached, my mind buzzed, but beneath it was calm. A delicate pause holding both of us in the same fragile orbit. This quiet after the storm was more revealing than the act itself. Seeing him unguarded, raw, human, it was terrifying. I knew how easily it could vanish, how fragile this window was. But here he was, present. And I held him there with my gaze, my fingertips, every unspoken promise not to betray this trust. I realized then, our connection wasn't fleeting. Not in passion, not in heat. It was anchored, brutal, irrevocable, in the shared revelation of our deepest selves. And oh, how terrifying that was for both of us. So after everything, the confessions, the fire, the fall, I froze. Not from fear, not disbelief, but from the quiet. Dangerous, sacred quiet after a storm. Julian lay next to me, arm barely brushing mine. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, the air wasn't sharp, electric, demanding. It was soft. Heavy with warmth, yes, but soft. The smell of him lingered, cologne, sweat, heat, comforting, familiar. My fingertips itched to trace his jaw, memorize that curve that had betrayed so much earlier. We didn't speak. We breathed. Let the space hold us. The silence was sacred, each exhale, each heartbeat stretched. I wanted to memorize the moment. Hold it. I could hear his breathing, deliberate but uneven, reminding me he wasn't used to being seen, vulnerable, human. And my chest tightened, fierce and tender. This was it. The peak. Not the act itself, but the aftermath. Masks off, raw truth existing. "Are you okay?" I whispered. Too soft, fragile. He didn't answer at first. Just a small, audible sigh. Then, yeah, I'm fine. Simple, flat, everything. No pretense, no layers. Truth, I reached out, hand hovering above his chest, trembling. No force, just confirmation. He leaned slightly into the touch, just enough, and I felt a dizzying surge of peace. Peace. That's all I'd ever wanted, to feel unshakable, unspoken safety. I thought, recklessly honest, if the competition ended right here, right now, I'd give him the hearth. This feeling was worth more than business, power, winning. It was about this quiet, terrifying connection we'd never allowed ourselves before. Yet my chest tightened again. Whisper of dread, fragile, could unravel. But for now, we let it exist. Fingers brushed, shoulders pressed, breath synchronized. No plans, no future. Just this, just us. And oh God, it was enough, for now. After the quiet, the fragile, impossible peace, I reached for him. Hand trembling, hovering over his chest, wanting to confirm he was here, we were here together. Then I felt it. A subtle shift. Not dramatic, just tension, a tightening under my fingertips, a memory in his chest. Jaw clenched, not violent, but enough. Hand lifted slightly, withdrawn. I froze. His eyes, still glimmering from fire and confession, flickered away for the first time. Warmth, vulnerability, ours to hold, gone in a heartbeat. The air sharpened. I felt the subtle retreat, shoulders curving, head tilting away. "Oh, yeah." His voice low, careful, measured, flat. "I should check on the project." Later. Project. Project after everything. My chest sank, stomach plummeted. The man who had bared himself so fully was retreating behind the glass wall, slowly, methodically. He shifted again, fingers flexed, tiny movements to erase intimacy, to remind both of us of boundaries, arm lifted, no glance, no apology, distance erected instantly. I wanted to pull him back, anchor him in the fire we'd shared, but his retreat wasn't just physical. His mind was already resetting. CEO mask descending. I swallowed. The warmth, the closeness, slipping away. My fingers hovered, useless. First fissure enough to shatter the fragile sanctuary we'd made. I tasted inevitability. Chest burning, fingers tingling where his had slipped. Desire became danger. Warmth turned sharp. Bonds I thought unbreakable began to unravel. He pulled back, not gentle. Full retreat. 1 second his chest pressed into mine, hands warm, pulse loud, and the next, switch flipped. Stiffened posture, eyes averted, air cooled. The scent of him, sweat, cinnamon, electricity, gone. Step back, another, measured, deliberate, space imposed, the vulnerability, the closeness, shoved aside by cold logic. I reached, hovering, no touch, no glance. Stiff posture spoke, you're not allowed here anymore. The click of shoes, fingers straightening jacket, mental lock snapping shut. Steel and glass of Julian's mask locking in place. I froze, chest tight, stomach dropping. He wasn't just pulling away from me, he was pulling away from the man he'd been 5 minutes ago. That warmth, that intimacy, erased, replaced by sterile, biting air. And I knew desire had turned into danger. The bond we'd forged, fragile, fleeting, was fracturing. I was frozen, still reeling from the sudden vacuum of warmth he'd left behind, and then he spoke. Not a flinch, not a stutter, not a single breath that sounded human, just that calm, measured tone, like we were discussing a budget report instead of unraveling something intimate. That was expedient, he said. Expedient. God. Like we were talking quarterly projections, not exposing ourselves in ways you don't just erase with a corporate slide rule. He paused, straightened the crease in his jacket, always obsessed with control, and continued. But we must ensure this doesn't compromise our focus moving forward. Every syllable was surgical, precise, devoid of heat. My ears burned, my chest constricted. The air between us thickened, metallic and cold. The warmth that had wrapped around us only moments ago, his pulse, the weight of his hands, the brush of his lips, shriveled into calculated distance. I wanted to speak, to yell, to grab him, and force him to acknowledge that intimacy wasn't an assignment. But his eyes avoided mine, fixed on some invisible point across the room. Angles and armor. He had taken a knife to our shared vulnerability and called it a necessary release of pent-up stress. And the betrayal hit like a punch to the sternum. Sacred, fragile, gone, reduced to a transaction, a tool, a calculated distraction. My stomach twisted. The trust, the warmth, the man behind the mask, it was all gone, wrapped in cold logic. I just stared, hands clenched into fists, voice caught, throat raw. But I couldn't release it yet. He hadn't earned my words, not yet. Silence stretched, letting him marinate in it, watching the man I thought I knew retreat into the machine he worshipped. Control, precision, calculation. When I finally spoke, it was quiet, dangerous. Every word measured, fueled by everything I'd felt and everything he just destroyed. Do you even feel what you just did? He didn't answer. Adjusted his tie instead, cleared his throat, studied some irrelevant detail on the table. That was his answer. Cold, clinical avoidance. My affection, my trust, my vulnerability, nothing more than a footnote in his equation. I think I heard my own heart break in the silence that followed. After that line, ice sliding down my spine, I couldn't let it sit. I had to confront him, force the truth into the sterile room we were in. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Hands trembling, not with anger, hurt, disbelief, raw ache. Voice sharp, ragged. Julian, did any of that mean anything to you? Even a little? The vulnerability? I faltered, searching him through the wall of ice he'd built. The honesty we shared? He didn't flinch, didn't look at me. Jaw tightened imperceptibly, eyes fixed on a detail that didn't exist. The answer was in his posture. He'd retreated completely into that unyielding shell. Chest tightening, ribs constricting, warmth gone, safe moment evaporated. The betrayal, oh God, the intimacy denied, stripped to a line item on his ledger. I swallowed again, throat raw, hands clenched. Did you feel anything? Or was that just part of the strategy too? The silence was worse than an answer. His mouth didn't move, eyes didn't lift, nothing. I realized I wasn't talking to the man who'd kissed me with desperate need. I was talking to the CEO, and the man, the real one, was gone. Knees threatened to buckle. I wanted to scream, to collapse. Impossible. The betrayal sharpened grief into a cold, slicing edge. I stepped back. Another. Distance unbearable, but necessary. I wouldn't stay and beg for a trace of his humanity. Not when all I got was calculated absence. Finally, I turned on my heel. The echo of my steps, the only sound as I left him, rigid, unyielding, untouched by the wound he just inflicted. Door closed behind me. Sound sealed it all. The end of that moment, the betrayal, the painful clarity. Something hardened in me. Hurt wouldn't vanish, but I would channel it. I would survive. And if Julian thought his cold rationality could leave me broken and silent, he was wrong. I closed the door. Click of the lock louder than anything Julian had said, or hadn't. The room shrank. Air brittle, like ice across lungs. I wanted to scream, to curl up, but the impulse barely surfaced. Instead, it turned inward. Cold, hard, sharp. Leaning against the door, feeling the pulse in my chest, the warmth that had been human minutes ago, I realized vulnerability was a luxury I couldn't afford. Julian had made that clear. He hadn't just pulled back, he'd reduced what I thought we shared to a transaction. And I wouldn't let it happen again. Desk. Fingers brushing leather briefcase. Weight, authority. Deliberate calm. Binder open. Numbers, strategy notes, weaknesses, weaponized. Lips pressed together. Jaw tight. He taught me a lesson about business, I murmured. I'm going to teach him a lesson about betrayal. Cold. Calculated. No heat. No trembling. Pages dissected. Assumptions ripped apart. Every chart, every note a calculated strike. Not for the hearth. Not for approval. Survival. Proof that I wouldn't be left raw again. Hours passed or minutes. Time blurred. Pulse in temples. Fingers cold, steady, coiled. By pre-dawn gray, exhaustion clawed but satisfied ache of weaponized heartbreak pressed in my chest. I hadn't cried. No tear, no shiver. Fire turned to steel. Binder closed gently, lovingly, slid into briefcase. Sleep came shallow, tense, but electric. Julian had taught ruthlessness. Tonight, I returned it. Morning hit sharp through blinds. Jacket crisp, tailored, calculated for notice, hair pulled back, eyes cold, hard. The impulsive, warm Alara buried beneath betrayal and strategy. Shared space. Julian already there, stiff, coffee untouched. Eyes flicker at mine, tiny crack in control. I didn't flinch, no softness. Met him with my own mask, measured, neutral. Morning, he said, smooth, empty, polished. Morning, I replied, clip, professional, no warmth, no memory. Fingers flexed lightly, not nerves, but preparation. Subtle flinch in his eyes, confirmation of emotional battlefield claimed. Air thick, charged with memory, betrayal, unspoken knowledge. Every breath a chess move, every gesture calculated. I knew his weaknesses, he knew mine. Julian cleared throat. Are you ready for the meeting with Silas? Clinical, detached. Yes, I said, smooth. Let's not waste time. Subtle surprise. He didn't know whether to admire, resent, or fear me. Hesitation mine to wield. We lingered. Two professionals armed with knowledge of each other's vulnerabilities, shared pain, now a weapon. No smiles, no apologies, only taut tension. Then the summons came. Chef Silas's voice. Final meeting. I straightened, chin high, and followed, leaving Julian to process the mirror I held up, his own cold professionalism reflected in me. Sharper, colder, more focused. The standoff escalated. I wasn't just competing for the hearth. I was competing to make him see exactly what his betrayal had cost him. Mediation room. Air thick, like burnt caramel left to sit. Julian and I walked in, silent. Silence now heavy, pressing against my chest. He stood rigid, hands folded. But I saw the panic beneath the mask, jaw twitching slightly when Silas cleared his throat. Silas didn't waste time. Calm, deliberate. The final challenge is simple and brutal. You will each create a dish that incorporates and neutralizes the strengths of the other. Only one dish can succeed. Only one of you will walk away with Rossi's hearth. Room colder. Words slammed. Zero sum. No compromise. No second place. Julian's eyes flicked to me. Quick, almost nervous. Spark of calculation, recognition. He knew I understood. I let the sensation sharpen me. Longing, warmth, laughter, drained. Replaced by cold, precise, unyielding focus. Neither spoke. Absorbing finality. Silas outlined time, ingredients, parameters. Hammer driving point home. One wins, one loses, no halfway. Old sentimental me whispered, don't let it end like this. Mental fist, no. Survival only. Cruel truth, he didn't just want a winner, he wanted a survivor. And surviving might mean killing the man I had loved, if only metaphorically. Every slice, flame, calculation precise. Jaw locked, chest tight. Silas stepped back. Last pieces of soft, warm Alara slipped away, replaced by precise, cold focus. Whetstone mind. We walked toward the shared workspace, side by side but worlds apart. Final challenge looming like a guillotine. The reckoning had begun. We stepped out of that suffocating mediation room, and of course, Julian tried to patch over last night. Measured tones, rehearsed expressions, like he was delivering a corporate briefing instead of apologizing for gutting me emotionally. Alara, he said, that almost pleading undercurrent I could feel only if I looked for it. About yesterday. I stopped, turned on him like a blade snapping from its sheath. Save it, I said, voice cold, surgically precise. Not a flicker of warmth. Your personal context is irrelevant to this contract, Mr. Vance. Let's focus on the deliverables. I saw it, the micro-expression, that quick hitch of surprise, the tiny furrow of his brow, the half-step backward. Thought he'd underestimated me. He wasn't used to being met with the same emotional steel he wielded like a weapon. We walked down the narrow corridor toward the main kitchen. Every footstep echoed, loud, deliberate, counting down the seconds to the confrontation we both knew was coming. Silence wasn't awkward. It pressed against the skin, cold and tense, like taut wires stretched across the air. He tried again, softer this time. I didn't mean. I cut him off, no flinch. His apologies were irrelevant. That Alara who let warmth cloud strategy was gone. Buried under last night's wreckage, polished into a sharp, unyielding edge. I noticed the details, how he adjusted his sleeves, how his fingers twitched slightly, the brittle armor of calm he usually wore, almost intoxicating, seeing him confronted by the reflection of his own control, mirrored back at me. By the time we reached the kitchen, the air already smelled of raw ingredients and heat, but it couldn't touch me. Not anymore. Heart, locked behind a door of precision. Focus, razor sharp. Objective, win. For me, for the self-respect he'd tried to toy with. I slid past him to my station, each movement deliberate. Julian paused, long enough for recognition to flicker in his eyes. He knew his miscalculation. He'd lost more than he realized. Then I said it, soft but cutting. Your emotional liabilities are irrelevant to the contract, Mr. Vance. Let's focus on the deliverables. No tremor, no plea, just fact. Severing whatever fragile connection lingered between us. He didn't answer, didn't dare. We began toward the final preparation phase in silence, the weight of all we'd lost pressing between us like an immovable wall. The stage was set, the game had begun, and I was ready to play without heart, without hesitation, without mercy. The kitchen, sterile, humming battlefield felt different. He saw it immediately. Not me, not warmth he could manipulate. He saw the reflection of himself, cold, calculated, unflinching, terrifyingly precise. Ingredients lined up like soldiers. I didn't pause to admire color or aroma. No lingering, no sentiment. Knife in hand, I tested the weight. Perfect. Extension of the resolve honed overnight. Julian began his mise en place, meticulous as ever, unaware the rules had shifted. He glanced at me once, hoping maybe for a spark of recognition. Wrong. I was done with warmth. Every motion methodical, mechanical. Julian's lessons weaponized against him. He wanted efficiency? I thought, slicing vegetables with surgical precision. I'll give him efficiency. Heartless, unstoppable efficiency. Snap of celery, tear of herbs, grind of peppercorns. No indulgence, no romance. Every motion stripped of love, every seasoning measured for impact. I caught Julian's eyes again. Unease. Recognition. The woman who laughed at his jokes, leaned in during strategy sessions was gone, replaced by someone who mirrored his perfection and exceeded it. He moved faster now, glancing at me with caution, maybe fear. Didn't matter. This wasn't about him. This was survival. Turning pain into a scalpel to carve my victory. Dish assembled with obsessive precision. Flavors, textures, aromas, all tools, tactical strikes. Step by step, every motion screamed, I am not sentimental. I am unstoppable. Final piece plated. I stepped back. Clock started. Tick, tick, tick. The Alara standing here was no longer the one who had ever loved Julian. She was a machine of precision, a weapon of logic terrifyingly unstoppable. The prep space thick with tension. Timer echoed off stainless steel. I didn't breathe deep. My body remembered every lesson, every cold, precise instruction Julian drilled into me. Risotto base, normally coaxed into creamy surrender. Today, measured to the gram, every stir calculated, every fold integrated without emotion. Aroma rich, nutty, buttery, but it didn't warm me. Signal only, the dish existed. Julian observed, no quiver, no lingering heart. My gaze met his. Thrill, not joy, not victory, sharp, cold satisfaction. Plating next. Geometry, lines, circles, microgreens precisely aligned, sauce dots perfect. No flourish. Cold, exact, machine-like. Silas stopped, raised an eyebrow. Alara? He didn't finish, couldn't. Precision almost clinical, expected passion, improvisation, storytelling, only strategy, and flawless. Julian's jaw tightened, defensive shift, gears turning. She's following my methods. She's as cold as I am. I let it cross my mind. He demanded a machine. I would show him one built on heartbreak. Garnish sliced, ribbons of carrot whispered through the air, each placement deliberate. No warmth. Dish finished, no signature of me, only the shadow of Julian's own ruthlessness reflected. Timer ticked. Julian faltered. Rhythm lost, pulse steady, execution, nothing else. Zero-sum game underway. My opening move complete. Julian, knife in hand, eyes flicking to my station, reading a language he no longer knew. Couldn't understand me. Warmth, quirks, gone. Sterile, efficient, calculated, a machine, with his signature ruthlessness. Fingers curled, shoulders stiffened. Air dense, electric, molten sugar thick. Panic creeping in, micro-expressions betraying him. He thought he saw malice, not self-preservation. Every fold, every garnish, every smear, silent message. I am in control, not him. Micro-flinches, tiny hesitations, over-adjustments. He was second-guessing himself against the ghost of the machine he made me. Irony, the king of efficiency, unbalanced by his own lessons. Eyes lingered. He faltered. Not skill, but recognition. The opponent had changed. Chessboard shifted. He couldn't predict my moves. Hands moved relentless, heart quiet, mind sharp. He thought I was cold and unfeeling. I hadn't even begun to show him the cost. Then I saw my opening, the obscure plating method Julian had drilled months ago. Impossible under pressure. Masterpiece potential. I grabbed it like a scalpel. Hands deliberate, slices measured against the clock, not passion. Browned butter, seared meat heavy in the air. Focus surgical. Little twist. Ingredient he loved placed strategically. Weapon disguised as weakness. Brain recalculating. Micro-hesitation. His plan, rigid, perfect, mathematical, fractured. I didn't pause. Joy irrelevant. Knife glided, sauce swooshed, presentation a clockwork puzzle. Shift in him, tight jaw, narrowed eyes, subtle twitch. He thought he knew me. Wrong. He tried to correct, regain dominance. My move, a wedge in his timing. Forced recalibration. His rhythm faltered. I directed. Air thick as caramel. Seared meat, brown butter, whisper of fear is fear. Every motion, I learned your game. I can play it better. And I would. Micro flinch at the knife, wrist twitch, cornered, recalibrating while I sailed. Judges leaned in, my maneuver complete. Superiority marked, artistry and efficiency, passion molded into logic. Julian understood. History, leverage, heartbreak baked in one flawless execution. I felt it, the thrill of control. Julian wouldn't take it lying down. Gears turning, plan forming, escalation coming. My move forced his hand. Real battle beginning. Right after my strategic flourish, the shift hit. Shoulders stiff, jaw locked, eyes flickered panic masquerading as calculation. He stared at my plate, not admiration, but scrutiny. Personal, not professional. Then he moved. Quiet, rehearsed. Not adjusting mise en place, executing to manipulate the rules. Whispered complaint to Silas. Timing interpretation, extra seconds. Leverage. Assertion, not request. Edge of my station brushed, blocking the oven fractionally. Technical sabotage. Cold, clinical. Chill radiated off him. Not anger, fear, dressed as dominance. And the thought that cut deepest? No hesitation. Love or what we had irrelevant. Only priority, control. Warmth, cracks, glimpses of vulnerability all gone. Mask a weapon, used on me. Stomach tightened. Betrayal surged, logic over emotion. Every fiber screamed at me to react. Not with heat, not with anger. Precision, surgical focus. My weapon now. Chef Silas called a break. Everyone stepped back. I didn't. Eyes locked on Julian, every memory, every lesson, every betrayal culminating. He'd tried to manipulate, to assert, to protect fear over trust. I knew exactly what I would do in those stolen minutes. Confront the betrayal. Not the move, not the timing, not the technicality, but the fact that he still saw me as a liability, not a partner. He made his choice. Now it was time I made mine. The break hit. Everyone moved like clockwork, chatting, stretching, tasting. But not me. I moved differently. Swift, purposeful. Almost silent, like a shadow cutting through the fluorescent glare of the prep room. Julian didn't notice at first. His attention was on the ovens, the timers, on the way his perfectionist world was starting to wobble. And then, I was there, closing the distance, slipping between him and the cameras, between him and the judges, between him and Silas. The air felt thick, like caramel that had burned just a shade too long. I didn't breathe hard. I didn't smile. My face, completely unreadable, mirrored his own professional mask, perfectly, unsettlingly. Julian noticed. I cornered him near the supply station. The shelves loomed overhead like silent witnesses. His breath hitched. The space suddenly felt tiny, confined, private. Panic flickered in his eyes before he caught himself, straightened, put on that calm, controlled Julian act. "What is this, Alara? Strategy?" he whispered, trying for a smile, clipped, anxious. The vibration of tension hung between us. I said nothing, not a word. I held his gaze, cold, calculating, unreadable, deliberate, each second stretched like a metronome tick. Each tick hammered the idea into him. I see you. I know exactly what you're doing, and I am choosing this moment. His pulse quickened. His hand twitched at the edge of a counter, reaching for control, but I didn't let him. Every inch of space was mine. His eyes flicked to the ceiling, the floor, then back to me, searching, looking for a loophole, a joke, a signal that maybe this wasn't serious. It was serious, silent threat. Not a scream, not a cry, not a sharp word. Just me, standing there, cold and controlled, every movement calculated. His own techniques mirrored back at him. For the first time, I had the upper hand, his fear of losing control, exposed, right in front of me. I let the silence stretch, slow, deliberate, pressure building. I wanted him to squirm, to realize this wasn't about ovens, plates, or timers. It was about us, his choice, my truth. Finally, my voice cut through, low and piercing. "Do you even see me, Julian? Or am I just collateral damage to your perfection?" He blinked. The mask faltered. Isolation had done its work. The next move, the real confrontation, was inevitable. The clock's quiet tick between orders and timers became the heartbeat in my chest. I didn't waste a second. I closed the distance, silent, a shadow he didn't see coming. The fluorescent light bounced off the stainless steel shelves. I ignored it. I only saw him. His shoulders stiffened the moment I backed him against the supply station. That twitch at the corner of his jaw, he thought it subtle. "What is this, Alara?" he whispered. The word strategy hung after it, uncertain, almost hopeful. I didn't answer. Not a word. I held his gaze, and in that silence, the truth formed. My truth. His truth. The truth he'd been hiding from for months. Finally, I spoke, low and deliberate. "You didn't run because you were afraid of losing the competition, Julian." No tremor, not a flicker. My spine stiffened, heat crawling up my neck. I didn't flinch. "You ran because you were afraid of trusting me, and that tells me everything I need to know." His eyes flickered. Just a hint, the ghost of the man I knew, the man who once trusted me, staring at a truth he couldn't deflect. His mask slipped, panic underneath. I stepped closer, not touching him. Didn't need to. The air between us carried weight. Every lesson he drilled into me about precision, control, strategy, I weaponized it against him. Every calculated step, every perfect plate, every obsessive timing tweak, all of it built to this moment. He opened his mouth to respond. I shook my head. Silence was my hammer. He didn't argue, couldn't. He'd been exposed. The break ended, the timer beeped, reality snapped back. But I didn't move first. I let him linger in paralysis a second longer, feeling the full weight of my words. Then I turned, walked back to my station, sharp, deliberate steps, precise, calculated, fueled by truth. Julian stayed frozen, staring at the space where I'd been, the silence of my accusation echoing louder than any judge's call. My victory, before the plates were even presented. I stepped back to my station. Julian tried that little stunt. God, the audacity. It would have flattened me before. Not now. I shook off the tremor in my hands. Let the fire in my chest sharpen into something precise, unstoppable. Every beat of the timer, every hiss of the oven synced with my fury. Not chaotic, not wild, not that flailing storm of emotion that used to betray me. This time, cold, calculated, efficient. The heat radiating off the stovetops felt like molten sugar, threatening to scald if I wavered. Knives felt impossibly light, slicing proteins with surgical grace. Satisfying, but not indulgent. Not the sweet kind I used to get cooking for love. Satisfaction wrapped in steel. Every ingredient landed exactly where it should. Every fold of sauce executed like a blueprint Julian might admire. I glanced sideways. Julian, frozen at the edge of the prep line, probably expecting me to falter. Joke's on him. I moved with rhythm, each gesture deliberate. Carrots, perfect julienne strands, aligned like soldiers on parade. Cream reduction shimmered in a mirror sheen, balanced between sweet and tart. The garnish he once praised? Strategic, subtle. A nod that screamed, "I learned your lesson, Julian. Watch me execute it." The air thickened, almost suffocating. Molten caramel cooling too slowly, trapping all the tension in the room. My breath shallow. Mind razor sharp. No time, no space, no doubt. Jaw tight, neck coiled, not a flicker of hesitation. Plating station. The assistant slid my dish forward like a sacred offering. Every second counted. I executed final assembly like a machine. No hesitation, no flourish, no sentiment, just the dish. Julian watched, eyes darting, thinking, she's cold, perfect, doesn't care. Exactly what I wanted him to think. Underneath the mechanical facade, my heart was a furnace. Furious, yes, focused. Not broken, not vulnerable, not his to manipulate. Every stroke of sauce, every precise sprinkle of microgreens, boundaries enforced in edible form. His fear, control, betrayal turned into fuel. Plates ready. I stepped back, surveyed the composition, not beautiful sentimentally, beautiful strategically, untouchable. Colors, textures, aromas spoke of control, mastery, and rage harnessed into artistry. We moved to final presentation side by side. Our eyes met. He recalculated everything he thought he knew about me. Good. Let him watch. The woman he underestimated had turned chaos into perfection. The machine had built itself, and now it was time to win. So here's the thing. I'm standing there with my plate in front of me, watching the judges. Silas is in the center, eyes narrowed, fork hovering over my dish like it might explode. And Julian, God. Julian is beside me in that sharp suit, hands rigid at his sides. And suddenly I see it. Not the man I've sparred with, flirted with, argued with. Not the rival. I see him. Really see him. Maybe for the first time since all this madness started. His eyes flick from Silas to my plate, then back to me. It's like he's measuring the weight of every decision he made on the way here. His mouth is tight. His jaw clenches. He's always been composed, clean, calculated, perfectly controlled. But now he's looking at the hurt in my eyes, the cold mask I wore to protect myself, and it's hitting him like a punch. He's realizing this win he's been clawing toward comes at a cost he never accounted for, and the horror on his face when it lands. God, winning doesn't feel like triumph. Not now. It feels like loss, a deep, twisting loss that reminds him exactly who he broke in the process. Me? He's not thinking about the lease or the prestige. He's thinking about what his ambition has done to us. I can almost hear the thoughts cutting through him. I didn't just break the rules last night. I broke the one person who ever saw the man underneath. And if I win, I prove she was right to think I'm nothing but the machine. You feel that? That chilling moment when someone finally sees themselves through the mirror of their own damage? That's him. I watch him quietly as the mask cracks. Tiny fractures at first. A tremor near his eyes, his posture shifting like he's losing command of himself. His hands twitch, barely noticeable unless you're looking for it. And I am. I see all of it. He mutters something under his breath, voice tight. He's not planning his next move anymore. He's replaying every moment between us, every laugh, every argument, every time he let his walls slip. My confession, the laughter he didn't want to share but did. Every little flicker of humanity he hid from me, coming back to hit him all at once. He finally gets it. This is no longer a game. The maneuvers, the counters, the precision, none of it matters if I walk away believing he's just a machine. And worse, he knows that losing me emotionally is far more devastating than losing this entire contract. And me, I stand still, hands clasped, cold on the outside. But I feel every bit of him unraveling. I don't need to speak. He's facing himself in the reflection of my eyes. This is the moment, the critical turn. He's no longer thinking about victory. He's thinking about what he broke and whether it can even be fixed. His reckoning is a storm, violent, silent, all at once. And all I can do is watch while everything inside him fractures. The judges are murmuring, tasting, scribbling notes. I hardly hear them. It's all Julian. His guilt, his fear, the dawning certainty that if he pushes forward now, he loses me forever. And just like that, everything shifts. The competition stops being about the lease. It becomes about the heart he's been pretending doesn't exist, and the one I forced him to confront. And then his mind breaks open. 1 second he's rigid and mechanical, and the next he's flooded with memories. The first one is me laughing in the kitchen, genuinely laughing, because I made that ridiculous souffle wobble just to see what he'd do. He froze instead of chasing it, and I teased him until he turned red. And somehow he loved that. The imperfection, the unpredictability, the piece of me that wasn't polished. Then the confession, my raw, trembling truth. C65. He's replayed it over and over. He didn't recoil because I was messy. He recoiled because he couldn't handle the imperfection in himself. And the night well, you know. C69. Desperation and closeness and fear all tangled up. His hands shaking because he thought love had rules and he was breaking them by feeling anything at all. Each memory slices through him. He's seeing clearly now. He wasn't strategic in Arc 3. He was scared. Every cold choice came from panic, not precision. He finally understands that my passion wasn't the threat. His fear was. And then my final accusation, C87. You didn't run because you were afraid of losing the competition. You ran because you were afraid of trusting me. It hits him harder than anything Silas could say. He remembers the weight of it, the silence after, and the truth beneath it. Inside he whispers, desperate. I didn't see you as a liability, Ilara. I saw you as salvation, and I panicked. That's where the storm clears. Every rule, every bit of control, every rigid belief falls away, and he knows, finally knows, what matters. He snaps back into the present with clarity sharp as glass. He has to act, not for pride, not for the lease, for us. I don't see him move yet, but the air shifts around him, heavy, electric. I know something is coming. Then it happens. Julian steps forward and the entire room tilts. He doesn't touch his dish, doesn't sabotage anything physically. He just speaks, cold, precise, legalistic. The voice he uses when he's dismantling an opponent one clause at a time, but his eyes are on me. He cites an obscure loophole buried in the challenge contract. Something he slipped in months ago. The judges freeze. Even Silas blinks. The clause forces a joint venture review when results are too close to call. Translation? No unilateral winner. No zero-sum glory. He rewrites the game to protect us both. My stomach flips. My instincts scream. Is he cheating? Yielding? Setting a trap? But the part of me that always understood him whispers, wait. The judges scramble. Papers rustle. Pens scratch. The air feels metallic. I can hear my own heartbeat. Julian stands there, perfectly calm, but his eyes are soft in a way I've never seen when he's fighting. Every move he makes is tethered to me. I can't breathe. I can't read him. But I know the rules just changed. He didn't destroy my dream. He preserved it. For me. Whether out of love, strategy, or madness, I can't tell. But the game has shifted. Completely. And then the room stops. Silas's pen hits the clipboard with a sharp clack that makes me jump. He stares at Julian like the man has just detonated a bomb in the middle of a museum. This competition has ceased to be about the lease, he says quietly. We need a recess. Just like that, they're gone, papers in hand, muttering, confused, shaken. The door shuts behind them, and it's just us, Julian and me. In the silence of a cooling kitchen, I can't read his face, his hands, his posture. Everything about him feels stripped bare, and that raw honesty is almost terrifying. I stand there frozen, heart pounding, because something fundamental has shifted, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be grateful or furious. The judges return eventually, looking like they've survived a natural disaster. One of them clears her throat. No award of the lease can be made at this time. A binding resolution requires further review. Just like that, victory evaporates. Then comes the corporate jargon. Mediation will commence in 1 hour. Relief washes through me so fast my knees nearly give out. I haven't lost, but I also haven't won. And Julian, he stands there without a flicker. Silas walks straight to him, eyes sharp, and gestures for Julian to follow. No words, just authority and tension so thick it nearly vibrates. Julian goes without hesitation. The door closes behind them, and I'm left in the empty kitchen, staring after him, pulse racing. Something inside me trembles, fear, relief, confusion, maybe everything at once. Winning suddenly means nothing. Losing means nothing. Everything has changed. When the door shuts behind them, the kitchen finally goes quiet. Truly quiet. I lean against the counter, the cold metal digging into my palms. The smell of my dish lingers, warm citrus, caramelized edges, a little bitterness. His dish too. Perfect. Untouched. And the question gnaws at me. Did he just throw the win? Did he do it for me? Or is this another strategy I can't see yet? The room feels hollow, waiting. My pulse thuds in my ears as I sink into a chair. I trace the rim of a plate, trying to ground myself. But the only thing echoing in my head is Julian's choice and the way he walked away. He sacrificed something. I just don't know what the cost was, or who's about to pay it. The clock ticks on, steady and relentless, and my dread ticks with it. So, the kitchen. It was too quiet. Wrong quiet. The kind that makes you feel like the whole building is waiting to see if you'll fall apart. The judges had vanished to the mediation room. Silas hauled Julian off to whatever secret villain corridor he uses, and I was just sitting there in the wreckage. Pans cooling, plates smeared, fennel and burnt sugar hanging in the air, thick enough to chew on. Every tiny sound felt magnified. The drip from the faucet, the hum of the fridge, like the kitchen itself was whispering. Something went sideways. And my brain? Oh, it was doing laps. Julian's stunt, his legal loophole. Watching him turn what should have been his win into pandemonium with one calculated little flourish. They called it clever. I call it a kamikaze move with better tailoring. Who does that? Who looks the judges dead in the eye and hands them a reason to slam the brakes on everything? To protect me? To punish me? To stall? To what? Dramatically monologue later? I tried to make sense of it, like it was some recipe I could fix if I just stirred it enough. My hands shook. My apron smelled like rosemary and dread. I was too tired to cry, too wired to sit still. I kept glancing at the spot by the prep table where he'd stood earlier. So controlled, so elegant, so very Julian Vance, man immune to sweat. And then he'd torched the board. Why? Mercy? Strategy? Some narcissistic performance piece about sacrifice? If he'd barged back in right then and told me it was all part of a 5-dimensional chess plan, I swear I would have thrown the nearest saucepan hard enough to become a physics lesson. Minutes crawled, 10, 15. My pulse refused to relax. I sat on the prep stool, staring at the door like it might sprout lips and explain itself. And then, the door creaked. He slipped inside fast. Too fast. Like he'd sprinted the whole way. His tie was hanging off one shoulder, hair a disaster, eyes frantic, like something had exploded inside him and he hadn't picked which pieces to salvage. He looked like a man who'd survived a crash and come hunting for the wreckage. I didn't move, didn't speak. I didn't know which version of him I was getting, the tactician or the human. He stopped in front of me, still catching his breath. Alara? And I felt the weight of whatever he was about to say hit the air. My chest tightened, my fingers curled around the counter. Because my mind was already spinning horror scenarios. A deal, a buyout, the generous rebranding of everything you are. My heart was thundering so hard I almost missed the knock. Miss Rossi, Mr. Vance. The intern's voice cracked. They're reconvening, now. Julian froze. Whatever words he'd come to unload vanished. He shut his eyes like he was begging whatever gods he pretends not to believe in for 10 more seconds. And I just sat there, still bracing for an explanation that didn't come. So that was it. No answer, no closure. Just me in a kitchen that smelled like endings, and him standing there half destroyed, waiting to go back into the arena. I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm the victor, the loser, or the pawn he decided to keep. And then I followed him out. Now the mediation room. If the kitchen was the aftermath, this room was the pause before the next explosion. Cold, tight, over-sanitized. Lemon polish and nerves. My personal hell. Julian walked behind me. Behind me. He never walks behind me. He usually leads like he invented the concept of doorways. Now he moved like he was dragging an invisible anchor, tie still loose, hair still a mutiny. Silas sat at the head of the table, unreadable as ever. The judges looked like they'd been through trench warfare. Legal counsel shuffled papers containing, I assume, pieces of my soul. I sat. My chair squeaked loud enough to be rude. Silas cleared his throat. After review of the submission and the unexpected contractual clause introduced by Mr. Vance, my entire body said nope at that phrase. He continued, calm as a priest delivering bad news. The committee finds the prior evaluation cannot be finalized. Translation, stalemate. Then came the rest. Equitable partnership, reassigned controlling interest, my irrevocable claim to Rossi's hearth. It took a moment for the translation to click. Julian handed me everything. Ownership. Autonomy. Full creative control. Not partial, not conditional. Mine. And instead of joy, it hit like a punch. Because this wasn't his style. Julian doesn't hand things over. He acquires. He corners. He bends reality until it fits his blueprint. So what was this? Guilt? A power play? A peace offering wrapped in a riddle? Silas slid the final document across the table. My name above proprietor and creative director, his name under investor and silent partner. Silent. That word practically winked at me. I signed with a hand that wasn't fully cooperating. He signed without hesitation, like he'd already accepted whatever consequences came with it. Silas gave a single nod. We're done. People stood, papers shuffled, chairs screeched, but neither of us moved. He stood there reflected in the glass, head bowed, hands clasped, smaller somehow. Human. Silas paused at the door, looked straight at Julian. This only works if you stop trying to win. Then he left. The silence that followed could have cracked marble. I finally stood. So that's it? You get to play martyr and I get the prize? He looked up. His eyes were raw, and I hated that it hurt to see. He said nothing, just straightened his jacket and held the door for me. We walked out as partners on paper. In reality, still enemies in a ceasefire. That silence stuck to us all the way back to the cabin, crushed gravel under our shoes, slow and steady, like neither of us wanted to get there first. The air felt charged, storm coming, but holding back. I could smell damp earth and the faint ember scent from the cabin's hearth. Inside, I didn't even take off my coat. Why did you do it? I asked. He stopped. Do what? Don't. I snapped. Why did you give it up? You could have fought harder. You always fight harder. He let out a shaky breath and dragged a hand through his already chaotic hair. He gave this short, humorless laugh that hurt more than if he'd yelled. He didn't answer, so I pressed. You walked in with the advantage. You set the terms, you spun circles around everyone, and somehow I came out with everything you were supposed to want. So what was that? Pity? Guilt? Some melodramatic redemption arc? He flinched. Good. When he finally looked at me, his face was stripped bare. No armor, no charming menace, just exhaustion and fear, because I couldn't keep taking things from you. He said, voice cracked. That's not an answer. It is. He swallowed hard. Every time I pushed, every win, it stopped being about the business. It became about proving I could still be someone you'd respect. That almost knocked the air out of me. Respect? I said. You lied. You humiliated me. You tried to own me. I know. His voice broke, and I kept telling myself it was strategy, that you'd forgive me once it all worked. But then you looked at me like I was a stranger, and I realized I didn't even know myself anymore. His hand shook. I'd never seen that on him. You could have told me, I whispered. Anytime. I was terrified, he said. You were the one person I couldn't manipulate without hating myself, and I didn't know how to be honest without losing you entirely. That one, yeah, that landed. He went quiet, then said, I didn't give up my chance to win. I gave up pretending I needed to. My throat tightened. He met my eyes, and there was no calculation left to hide behind. I didn't want the restaurant. I wanted you to see me as something other than the man who broke you, but I didn't know how to fix it without breaking myself. I asked, barely breathing. So you compromised? Out of love? No, he whispered. Out of surrender. The word hit like the snap of a live wire. For a long moment, the only sound was the fire crackling. Then he said, voice barely hanging together, You once asked what I was afraid of. It wasn't failure. It was you, seeing the worst of me and walking away. And there it was. Finally, the truth he buried under a mountain of schemes. That's where I left him, standing in the firelight, red-eyed and undone. Because for the first time in his life, Julian Vance didn't try to win. He just told the truth. He stood there with wet eyes and a raw voice, firelight flickering over the wreckage between us. And yeah, that moment didn't end quickly. It stretched, slow and tight, until I finally said, keep talking. He looked wrecked. Not the dramatic, cinematic version, just quietly undone. His shoulders slumped, tie loose, shirt half untucked in a way that made him look almost human. The perfection stripped off. He took a breath, the kind you can hear all the way down. Then he said it. I didn't run because I stopped caring. I ran because I cared too much, and I was terrified your honest love would expose my deepest secret. I'm not perfect, and I don't know how to stop losing control. My pulse jumped so fast my fingertips buzzed. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. When you walked into my life, you were chaos, passion, fire, and everything in me wanted to contain it, direct it, own it, because that's what I do. That's how I survive. But you. He stopped, rubbing his jaw. I could hear the rasp of his stubble. You made me feel alive, and that scared the hell out of me. I laughed, sharp. So instead of dealing with that, you tried to burn me down? His answer was barely a whisper. Yes. Something twisted inside me at that. He wasn't defensive. He sounded like a man staring at the wreckage and finally admitting, yeah, I did this. He kept going, words halting but honest. You have to understand, my whole life has been control. Deals, partnerships, decisions behind closed doors. It all worked because I was never vulnerable. And then you showed up and you didn't play by those rules. You cooked like you were confessing. You loved like it was oxygen. And I didn't know how to match that without losing everything that made me, me. I swallowed, staying quiet. I wanted him to keep talking. He looked down again. When I pushed you away after that night, his eyes squeezed shut. It wasn't because I didn't want you. It was because I did. And I didn't trust myself not to destroy you in the process. That one slipped deeper than I wanted it to. Then he looked at me, voice steady. You were better than me, Alara. Not just in the kitchen, everywhere. You lived without calculation. I envied that. I tried to control it because I didn't think I deserved it. The fire cracked. That was the only sound. And then he took a shaky breath. I tried to manage your dream like it was a risk assessment. I thought if I contained it, I could protect myself. But all I did was insult the very thing that made you extraordinary. I wanted to yell. I really did. But he looked so open, stripped down to bone and honesty, that my anger caught in my throat. He said softly, you loved with integrity. I manipulated with fear, and I'm sorry, truly, that I made you doubt your worth, even for a second. God, that hit the center of everything. All those months I spent pretending I didn't care, he just named the wound. I needed him to admit my dream mattered, that I mattered. And then he did. You don't need me to fix you, he said quietly. You never did. You just needed me to see you clearly. And I do now, every part. The room shrank around us. Even the air felt heavier. He stopped talking then, just waited, hands open at his sides, chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. For once, Julian Vance didn't fill the silence, didn't reach for control. He waited. The choice finally was mine. Silence lingered between us like a note that didn't want to fade. I stood there, staring at him, his confession still looping in my head until the words blurred into pure feeling. My throat pulsed, my eyes burned, and that old ache in my chest, the one I kept pretending didn't exist, came roaring back. He looked wrecked, not attractively disheveled, just open, scared. And the strangest part? He wasn't hiding it. I took a breath. Julian, I said quietly, you can't drop all that and think it fixes everything. He nodded once, like he already knew. I stepped closer. You say you were afraid of losing control. Fine, but the way you handled it? The way you handled me? I shook my head. That wasn't fear. That was domination dressed up as protection. His mouth twitched like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. A miracle. You said you were terrified of your passion, I went on, but you used that fear as an excuse to cage mine, to call my dream impulsive, naive, too emotional. And it worked, you know? You made me doubt myself. He flinched at that. Quick, but I saw it. I spent months rebuilding, I said, softer. Learning I didn't need your permission to be brilliant, or bold, or messy. And now you're standing here saying you finally see me? I met his gaze. Good, then see all of me. The parts that scare you, the parts that don't fit into your perfect plans. He let out a quiet, broken laugh. Alara. No, I cut in. Listen, if we move forward, if we do it as equals. No more management, no more secret strategies, no more protecting me behind my back. I don't need a shield. I need a partner. That word hung there heavy. He exhaled slowly. You have that. You always did. I was just too blind to recognize it, I finished. Yeah, I know. Something shifted. His posture eased. His face softened. For once, he wasn't trying to win. He looked like a man trying to understand. Here's the deal, I said. I love the man you are when you're afraid, because that's when you're real. But if you ever try to manage my dream again or treat my heart like it's a liability, I'll walk. No speeches, no warning. His eyes locked on mine, crystal. The way he said it hit me straight in the gut. He took one slow step closer. You don't have to fight me anymore, Alara. I'm not your opponent. I let out a shaky laugh. You were never supposed to be. We stood there for a moment. No war, no weapons, just the quiet hum of something new settling between us. Not forgiveness yet, but recognition. He reached out, brushed his fingers against mine, gentle, uncertain, and I didn't pull away. Maybe this was what it looked like to stop surviving each other and start building something instead. That's how we ended up at that tiny corner table, the one that had seen every version of us. Rivals, co-conspirators, enemies, lovers, and whatever this was now, something that felt real. The restaurant was empty except for the fridge humming in the back and the smell of burnt espresso we'd forgotten to clean. He sat with his sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, wearing his best I'm relaxed, I swear pose. I crossed my arms, still prepared for him to try negotiating my immortal soul for a contract clause. "So," I said, "what are the terms?" He grinned. "Terms?" "Yes, Julian, terms. You function on structure, so let's structure this, our partnership." That got him. He leaned back, reached for his phone, then froze like even he knew that was too much. So he grabbed a napkin instead. I snorted. "You're drafting a partnership agreement on that?" "Symbolism," he said with a shrug. "Perfect. Just like you, thin but dramatic." He smirked, ignored the jab, and pulled a pen from his jacket like a magician. Then he started writing in those neat, precise strokes. Clause 1, division of power. You own the kitchen. I handle the financials. No interference. Define no interference, I said. He glanced up. You make all creative decisions, menu, concept, staff, all of it. I handle operations, investors, suppliers. We consult each other, but neither of us overrides. I narrowed my eyes. Actual equality? Not your version where you smile politely while secretly editing my menu. He set the pen down. Actual equality, and if I do that again, you can dump boiling stock on your shoes? He grinned. Exactly. We laughed, and oh, I'd missed that. Okay, I said, grabbing the pen. Clause 2. I scrawled across the napkin, all menu items are subject to final approval by Alara, Supreme Ruler of Taste. He raised an eyebrow. Supreme Ruler? Don't fight the bylaws, I said. Sign. He signed. Julian R. Hale, all elegant and expensive looking. Then he slid it back to me. Clause 3. No more secrets. That one hit differently. No more control tactics, I added. If something scares you, say it. He nodded. And no more disappearing acts from you. Touché. I held out my hand. Equal partners, honest, no manipulation, no martyrdom. His grip was warm, steady. Deal. Something softened in the air. He brushed a crumb from my wrist. You know, this might actually work. I grinned. That's because for once, you're not running the kitchen. He laughed, and it broke the last bit of tension. We sat there for a while, just us. When he finally lifted his coffee cup and said, "To the partnership," I clinked mine against his. "To the real one," I said. And it was. After we signed the napkin, our ridiculous perfect little treaty, we just sat there. Quiet. The restaurant felt suspended in time. He watched me, but not with that calculating stare he used to use. This one was warm, human. Somewhere between the hour and the adrenaline crash, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. He reached out, his fingers brushing my wrist, testing. I didn't pull back. Still negotiating? I asked. His mouth curved, no terms this time. God, that line. It wasn't a tactic. It was surrender. So I leaned in first. The kiss wasn't frantic like before. It was slow, deep, tasting like cold coffee and something sweeter, like the start of a new season. His hand slid to the side of my neck, steady but not controlling. Finally, it felt safe. My whole body exhaled. Every wall I'd built softened. When I pulled back, I was smiling, really smiling. He looked stunned, not victorious, just grateful. This isn't a truce, I said. He blinked. No? No. This is a foundation. He didn't argue. He just took my hand again, like he wanted to memorize the fact that I was still there. And for the first time in forever, I wanted him to. I didn't know it then, but that was our last quiet night for a long time. Because a few months later, Rossi's Hearth opened its doors, and everything changed. Months later, Rossi's Hearth doesn't just exist, it breathes. The kind of breath that comes from a kitchen that's sure of itself. The morning rush hums like a heartbeat, steady and warm. You can smell the wood smoke before you even reach the door, that deep caramel scent that clings to your clothes. Under it, espresso, browning butter, and some bright citrus note from whatever experiment my pastry team is running. Everything feels alive. And every single morning, it hits me again. We built this. We. Julian's fingerprints are everywhere, but not in a way that makes me want to scream anymore. His precious flow optimization actually works. The whole place moves like choreography, smooth, human, warm. His clean structure mixed with my lived-in soul. The dining room's different too. The exposed brick I refuse to paint stays exactly as it is, balanced by the soft brass lighting Julian picked out. The music's low, just a hum beneath clinking glasses and easy conversation. It's surreal. I walk through the tables like it's opening night all over again, except now there's no dread, just this fullness in my chest, like I'm carrying light around. Every seat's taken. Someone near the bar lets out that unmistakable moan after their first bite of risotto. I know that sound. It's the sound of yes. Julian's systems are humming too. Those fancy POS terminals he insisted on, the fridge sensors that text the line cooks when anything dips out of range. He calls it real-time data integrity. I call it not letting my scallops die. Somehow, it all works. We work. The place is full of little details that are us. Wild seasonal flowers arranged perfectly, heavy linen menus because I refuse to go digital. His laptop open next to my sticky notes covered in sauce ratios and scribbled quotes from old Italian cookbooks. It's messy and structured at the same time. And it works. From the host stand, I watch the servers float through the room while golden kitchen light flickers through the swinging door. I hear Julian's voice in the back, calm, steady, probably soothing a vendor or adjusting a spreadsheet. He's quieter these days. Not withdrawn, just settled. Like he finally unclenched something inside him. He used to say control made him feel safe. Now he just looks safe. One of our regular couples waves at me. "Alara, darling, it looks wonderful," the woman calls out. I grin so wide my cheeks hurt. "Thank you," I tell her. "It's not just me anymore." And I mean it. I used to think sharing my dream meant losing it, that letting someone else touch it would make it less mine. But standing here now in this strange harmony of chaos and calm, I see the truth. He didn't take anything. He amplified it. There's a plaque by the entryway he had made without telling me. I noticed it the first week. It says, "Rossi's Hearth, for the ones who dream in flavors." And beneath it, small and perfect, founded by Alara Rossi and Julian Vance, partners in craft. Yeah, that still gets me. I catch my reflection in the bar mirror, hair up, apron smudged, face flushed, and I almost laugh. This is the version of me I wanted to be. Not perfect, not untouchable, just real, rooted. And when I think about everything we went through, it's wild. The man who once tried to outthink me now stands beside me, tending the same fire I used to guard like a secret. It's not just my dream anymore, it's ours. And somehow, that doesn't scare me at all. Hold that picture, because what happens next, that's where you really see it come alive. Because the kitchen, the real heart of everything, is calling. And Julian? He's about to show me he finally understands how to stand beside me, not in front of me. Morning hits like a wave, heat, noise, the clatter of pans, knives tapping in rhythm, and I'm in it, right where I belong. My hands work automatically while my mind scans the room, adjusting, directing, connecting the dots. The air smells like rosemary, seared garlic, fresh bread, and a little citrus from a sauce I'm testing. Basically heaven. I glance at my team, and I feel this quiet pride. My sous chef calls an order, a line cook fires back instantly, not out of fear, out of trust. It buzzes through the kitchen, sauce on the line, "Now, let's move!" My voice is sharp, but it's lifted by encouragement, not pressure. I feel it. I'm leading, and it's good. Then chaos hits. Orders pile up. One station short because Maria called in sick, of course. The rhythm wobbles, and I can feel heat crawling up my spine. And then Julian walks in. I see him out of the corner of my eye, leaning against the doorframe, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, eyes calm. My brain braces for him to swoop in and take over. He doesn't. He crouches by the prep table, checks something on his tablet, and murmurs, "Shift the balsamic reduction to the 2 p.m. delivery. It'll land right before service. Route the extra stock to the short station. You'll level out." He's not directing, he's not hovering, he's supporting, and then stepping back, leaving space for me to lead. I smirk. "Good call," I mutter and keep going. The team adjusts. The kitchen finds its rhythm again. Meanwhile, Julian slips to the office. I glimpse him on the monitors. Supplier calls, stock adjustments, payroll updates, but he never interferes. He doesn't orbit the kitchen like a controlling moon. He just supports the gravity. I realize I trust him with that. Really trust him. Service ends in a haze of browned butter and chocolate notes from a last-minute dessert. As things quiet down, Julian appears in the doorway again, smiling. Not smug, not triumphant, just genuinely pleased. Everything survived? He asks. Barely, I grin. Thanks to you. He shakes his head. You did the work. I just nudged a few dominoes. And he's right. That's what we are now. My chaos, his structure. No battles, no one trying to win, just fusion. I take one last breath of the warm, spicy air before heading out, and I think, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Power shared, not fought over. Love that doesn't shrink ambition, it lifts it. And right then, I know, this is exactly what we built. The restaurant is quiet now. The kitchen hum is gone, replaced by the soft clink of our private dinner setup. The lights are low, honey warm, catching the edges of glasses and tiny candles. Basil, brown butter, and lemon hang in the air from our last dish. I sit across from him and just look. No panic, no strategy, just him, me, our hands brushing now and then, like they're testing whether this new piece is real. I take a bite of the dish. God, it's perfect. My tangy tomato confit meets his precise risotto base. Every bite tastes like a conversation, passion and order, wildness and stability, months of conflict and late-night laughter. Julian watches me, eyes soft. Your heart's in this, he murmurs. I look up. Every choice, he says, every risk, it's you, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Warmth spreads through me. And you, your precision, your trust, your calm, it lets me fly without falling. You hold the frame steady so I can paint. It's perfect. He gives a quiet, almost shy smile. I've learned from the chaos. Control isn't winning, it's holding steady for someone you care about. And you taught me that passion isn't a threat, it's a guide. I laugh softly. And that's the strategy of love, isn't it? We planned, fought, messed up, and ended up stronger. He lifts his glass. To the strategy of love, the only recipe that matters. I clink mine against his. To the best partner a chef could have. We eat in silence for a while, savoring everything. Flavor, texture, the soft hum of us. When the plates are empty, he reaches across the table and covers my hand. His warmth is trust, steadiness, love, all layered together. I lean forward and kiss him. Slow, certain, nothing frantic. Wine, basil, candlelight, it all blends into this perfect final note. I pull back barely and whisper, this wasn't a truce, this was a foundation, and it is. Our hands stay linked. Our hearts do too. Rossi's hearth, our hearth, glows around us, rich with flavor, fire, and love. The story ends here, but the life we built, that's just beginning.